You were tapping your toes. You know you were. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We know you have many, many choices to make every single day, and we are so very, very grateful that you are choosing to spend some time with us. So thanks. Indeed it is. Follow the money. Thank you again for being here. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping. Sharing is caring. Liking is loving. There's a gifting goal today. And don't forget, we are crowdfunded. If you would like to support the channel, please do so. You can do that by using @Factsstillmatter at all the various sources that are out there. Gifting is always great. Please engage with the live. Trying to bring up my main, having some issues. My mods are going to diss on me for something as simple as this, but it doesn't seem like it wants to connect. But that's a different conversation. They can have their fun. I'm very grateful that you guys are here. So thank you very much. We spent some time yesterday going through the first of a 3-part series produced by Australian television called Four Corners. It talks about the Trump administration's connections to Russia. We unpacked the money side yesterday, a lot of it. We're going to do more of that today. We're also going to get into part 2 today, which features a lot of names that you'll know. Christopher Steele, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, and how all of that networking connected to the Trump campaign that led up to an infamous meeting at the Trump Tower in New York City. And we're going to unpack that. Got a lot of other things to get to, so please consider participating in the live today, because that's how we get traffic to FYP. You guys know the drill. Thank you again for being here very, very much. Let me try one more time. Let me see if I can do this one more time. Hang on a sec. Let's see if that's going to work this time. Maybe. Don't know. There we go. Okay. Again, thank you for being here. If you don't follow my main, please do so right there. If you don't follow me here, please do so right here. Another reminder: if you would like to join our Discord, you can find all the links to all of the items that we discuss on the show are always in the link tree that are in my bio. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate you. I do want to give you a programming note. Tomorrow morning, we will be interviewing Dr. Will Boyd, who's running for governor in Alabama. And we tried to do this interview last week, had all kinds of tech issues, all sort of stuff. That were all kinds of things that were happening. So we think we haven't figured it out, but he'll be with us tomorrow. So looking forward to that. All right, I want to kind of get into the Texas redistricting situation, because I think that there's lots of things that are connected to rhetoric coming from the White House regarding how they are so afraid of voters that they just want to cheat. As you know, so this is the latest. First of all, shout out to Nicole Collier. Probably not going to get the attention that she deserves for what she did by opposing her sit-in. Other women Democrats in Texas did the same thing last night. Well, the session, they are back. Today is the day. House floor vote today. 2-week quorum break by Democrats. As you know, the Texas House is set to take up a mid-decade congressional map that GOP leaders say could create up to 5 additional Republican-leaning seats for 2026. The Senate already advances its version. Committees of both chambers moved similar maps during a second special session that began August 17th. The Senate panel sent its bill to the floor, and the full Senate previously approved lines during the first session. It breaks apart Democratic strongholds around Austin, around Dallas, and around Houston. Jasmine Crockett's seat is potentially going to be affected. It makes several South Texas districts redder and aims for pickups without risking the 25 GOP seats Republicans already hold. Those South Texas districts in particular are the ones that are going to be challenged in court for racial gerrymandering. We will see. The push encouraged by Trump, not necessarily even encouraged, but more demanded by Trump, has triggered counter moves. California Democrats are weighing their own changes. And we heard sound from Charlie Kirk basically saying that, oh, well, do I still have it? I might even have it still. Just the hypocrisy. Here you go. This is crazy.
And so Gavin Newsom is going to try to call a special session to overturn the will of the voters. I thought it was all about democracy, right? It's not democracy. It's about oligarchy. And the baseline component of all of this is that the people of California, Republican and Democrat, socialist and libertarian, they don't want politicians involved in the drawing of the maps. Gavin Newsom does not care because he wants to be president more than listen to the voters of California.
It's exactly the opposite now, isn't it? In fact, the voters in California will get to decide, because that's how democracy works. By the way, if you want an incredible follow on X, go to Gavin Newsom Press Room, because the people involved in his campaign and in his press office are doing things like, oh, I don't know, like this, you know, that kind of stuff. It is fucking brilliant, the amount of trolling, and it's really getting under the skin of the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon. He can't handle it because he's so fragile. Beating him at their own game. You know, the trolling game. We went through some of the tweets that he's posted in all caps with just grammatical errors and fucked up syntax. And syntax, that's a complicated word for MAGA. A sentence structure, that's even too complicated. How words work. There you go. But it's great. And this is kind of what we want to see, right? We've been talking about this. We've been talking about how one of the main criticisms, and rightly so, is just there's not a lot of pushback, aggressive pushback. Strongly worded letters just don't cut it anymore. You need what we're doing. You need to be calling out Trump what it is, reminding people that he is on the Epstein files, the Trump files. He's in there. Sorry, Jess, my bad. He's in there. We know he's in there. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit because there are some webs to weave as it connects to Vladimir Putin, right? So I'm grateful that we're seeing it. We want to see more of it because it's what's needed. We have to kind of push back. It's like the mirror, right? Hold it up to them. When you have imagery of Gavin Newsom riding a Velociraptor, have Gavin Newsom sitting at his desk behind the Resolute desk with a Nobel Peace Prize in his hand and Jesus's hands on his shoulders. That's what we need. And how ironic that Fox News was freaking out saying it's childish and it's immature. And we're like, yeah, no fucking shit. That's the point. That's exactly the point. We don't care, meow, about Clinton being on the list. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. We don't care about that. You guys don't get it. We don't care because we're the ones that actually care about protecting children. We're the ones that actually care about defending the rights of marginalized communities. We're the ones that care about democracy. That's not you guys. I know you think it's a big flex when you say things like that, but guess what? It's not. It's not a flex. Okay. Before we do that, I want to get into this because this is crazy. This Truth Social post from the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon is wild. Let me see if I can find it because I don't know if you guys heard this yet. But you know how we've rightly so pointed out that he's a blatant fucking racist? Well, I don't know if you heard this, but I'm going to read it to you because it is disturbing. Let's see. Back to the museums. The museums throughout Washington, the museums throughout Washington, but all over the country are essentially the last remaining segment of woke. The Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was, and how unaccomplished and downtrodden, and how unaccomplished the downtrodden have been. Nothing about success, nothing about brightness, nothing about the future. We are not going to allow this to happen. And I've instructed my attorneys to go through the museums and start the exact same process that has been done with colleges and universities where tremendous progress has been made. This country cannot be woke because woke is broke. We have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including in our museums. Okay. That's nice. How bad slavery was. Okay. Not really, Devil. Thanks for asking, though. So, I don't know if, we don't need any more evidence about his blatant racism. We just don't. And here it is, right? Here it is on full display. We don't want to talk about how bad slavery was, implying that it wasn't that bad, right? Implying that we shouldn't talk about it. Don't forget, we've got people like Pete Hegseth contradicting himself regarding wanting to recognize American history. And in Pete's mind, we should be recognizing people who supported slavery and advocated for it, wanting to return Confederate statues to military bases, change the names of people. And now the president wants to erase history? That's exactly what he wants. To talk about the success. Don't forget, public broadcasting from the Trump administration, they no longer want to fund the Committee for Public Broadcasting. They want to replace it with PragerU curriculum that basically says, the G side of the native tribes and the indigenous people, not so bad. Slavery, well, there was some advantages for the slaves. They learned some skills. That's what they want to teach. They want to literally replace PBS, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, Bob Ross with PragerU. To do what? Oh, I know. To support their racist bullshit. So they no longer have to defend it. They can just say, see, this is American history. It is what it is. See, people who talk about slavery, we don't talk about that. The degradation of every marginalized community out there. Everyone. Similarly, they want to erase history as it connects to our atrocities globally. They don't want people to know about the internment camps during World War II, where we put Japanese Americans behind bars and fences. What do you think the next 5 or 6 years is going to be like? They don't want to talk about alligator Alcatraz. They don't want to talk about any of that. This is who they are, okay? This is who they are. We know because they tell us every single day. So I've got some interesting sound from Caroline Leavitt, and I want you to hear this. Again, attempting to defend what's happening in D.C. By the way, a lot of governors across the country are sending their National Guard troops. A lot of Republican governors sending their National Guard troops to D.C. to do what? By the way, Phil Scott, Republican governor of Vermont, said, nope, we're not doing that. Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. Vermont, that doesn't exist, by the way. But yet I have an empty bedroom if anybody's in dire need. What's the point? To do what? To do what? We know the president said, oh, if you put your hands on a monument? Really? Really? You put your hands on a monument and you're going to get arrested? For what? You want to call it what? I don't know. Just destroying property under the guise of we need to cover up our racism? Okay. Let's listen to what Caroline Leavitt had to say about these communities in DC.
Slums where criminals live.
Hold on.
Slums where criminals live.
Slums?
Was he talking about tents or permanent residential buildings?
First, when it comes to what you said, and the president said, the slums of Washington, D.C., he's referring to the most dangerous communities, neighborhoods, and streets in this city where, unfortunately, violence has ravaged these communities and taken the lives of, again, far too many law-abiding D.C. residents. We know on July 5th of this year, just more than a month ago, a 3-year-old beautiful young girl was shot and killed in her car with her family in one of these communities, which is why there has been a surge, despite what many of you have been falsely reporting. And I believe it was the Washington Post who put out a map claiming it to be fact-based when it was just based on, I don't know, accounts that they've heard on the street, not actual statistics and data. So we went and reconfigured the numbers. And as I said, nearly half of all the non-illegal alien-related arrests have occurred in wards 7 and 8 in the District of Columbia, where we know, excuse me, there's the highest rate of crime.
By the way, wards 7 and 8 are historically black, and that she is literally saying that we are targeting those communities, referring to them as slums. Okay? So we've got Donald Trump's own statement. Slavery's not that bad. We've got Pete Hegseth wanted to reposition and glorify the Confederacy, which were fucking slave owner traitors who are violated the Constitution as an uprising against their country. And now KKK Caroline, by the way, not wearing her cross, saying, oh yeah, we are targeting wards 7 and 8, historically black. And then the numbers that we redid, what numbers? Are you denying the fact that crime has been falling precipitously? Not even in the top 5 anymore? How come you're not talking about Jackson, Mississippi? How come you're not talking about cities in red states? How come you're not talking about the states that have the most, the highest levels of violent crime are in red states? How come you won't talk about that? Why is that? Why won't you? Why do you refuse to talk about it? Once again, MAGA, you don't care about crime. You do not. You hate brown people, period, full stop. You don't care about crime. I know you don't care about crime because you elected a 34-time convicted felon and adjudicated sexual predator who's on the fucking list. You don't care about crime. You keep electing Republicans who are committing crimes against children. You don't care about crime. You keep electing Republican officials who have crimes against women, numerous allegations against them. Predators. You don't care about crime and protecting kids because you vote and support, advocate for Republican legislatures who want to lower the age of consent. You don't care. You hate brown people. And here's the thing about it. You may have always hated brown people, but you've been told to hate brown people. You've been told by your elected officials that brown people bad, trans people bad, smart people bad, college educated people bad, woke people bad. Meanwhile, over here, the people that are telling you all those things are the ones that exponentially are the ones that are committing crimes against said populations. You are safer in our country, in a community surrounded by immigrants, than you are in a community surrounded by white men. Full stop. Those same states that you don't want to talk about are the biggest recipients of welfare in our country, the biggest recipients of food stamps in our country. The poorest states, the ones that are subsidized by blue states. Blue states carry your fucking water. You guys think that you can survive on your own? Absolutely fucking not. The division in America, as we've discussed many, many times, from the top, they want it to be right-left. It should be up-down. That was his goal all along, to destabilize our country, to destabilize it. And it worked like a charm. They got everything they wanted because MAGA voters and Republicans are selfish, ignorant, and willfully ignorant and grossly misinformed and uneducated. And we have the results. You want to go after blue states? People want to talk about, well, you know, woke New England. Well, guess what? New England has some of the smartest people, some of the hardest working people, the biggest percentage of GDP contribution. But what do you got? You want to put Massachusetts up against Oklahoma? Kids in 5th grade in Massachusetts have a better reading level than graduates from high school in Oklahoma. Full stop. Give me a break. That's what this is about. Now you want to erase history. Why? Why? Because you don't want to talk about your racism. You don't want to talk about your bigotry. You don't want to talk about your hatred for marginalized groups. You want your homogenous America. The right has done an amazing job of saying that the left wants to make this about culture wars. That's all the right has. Every single time it's about some culture war. You want to know what's in somebody's pants. You've got this weird obsession with genitals, which is really fucked up. It tracks, but it's really fucked up. You use big words. Well, in your world, they're big words. Woke. What the fuck is woke? Do you even know what it is? It's just about being aware of social injustice, societal injustice. That's all it is. You think liberal is a bad word? I'll gladly wear that, even though I'm not, by definition, a liberal. I'm progressive, but I think liberally. It's about being open-minded, willingness to hear other opinions. we want to see the future. What do you want? You want to go backwards in time, literally. We want to go forward. Why the fuck are you holding us back? Conservatives are like an anchor. Like, why? You have no reason to hate these people except you've been told to. It doesn't matter what the data says. We know that. I don't want to sound like a broken record. It doesn't, none of it matters. You just don't care. Why? Why don't you care? That's what I want to know. Why is it so difficult? Why? I don't know. Mods, can you check out the guest in the guest box, please? Let me know. So I don't know. I think to me it's a telltale sign of how soft you all are and how selfish conservatives are. There's no reason to hate the people that you hate. None. You were told to. You were told to hate them. We again, the divide in our country by design, the culture war divide comes from the right, doesn't come from the left. The people on the right just claim they want to be these free thinkers, they want to be independent, they don't want government involvement, and yet you cheer for it all the time. That's all you do. You just cheer for it. You cheer for the division. You cheer for it. You cheer for the government being in your business. I don't want the government in my business, but I'm so glad the government's in my business. Because you don't think it affects you. You don't care. You just celebrate the big ugly bill. That's all you do. You celebrate it. You don't even know that the overwhelming impact is going to affect you. It's going to affect you. It's the evidence. I don't care. I don't care if you don't believe it. We know you don't trust information every single time. You heard Caroline Levitt. Well, the new numbers that we ran, we're supposed to believe that. We know inflation's up. We know that the CPI's up. We know that the PPI is up, which is the producer price index. All signs point towards exactly what we've been telling you. And your response to that is, I'm just not going to trust the information. Hold on a second. I just can't trust it. It's too woke. Too woke. Can't have that. Can't have that. Why not? Why can't we have that? Why can't we have democracy? Okay. Good morning, Ferris.
Good morning.
What's on your mind?
Hey, I wanted to talk about the illegal immigrant in Florida that was given a CDL by California that killed those 3 people.
Cool. Have a good day. Go talk about it someplace else. When you can have a sincere conversation about the amount of Republican elected officials who are grooming and raping children, then we can have a conversation. But next time you want to come up, say, hey, Facts, I'd like to talk about why so many elected Republicans who claim to be churchgoers and Christians are raping kids. And then when we finish that conversation, then we can move to your talking point, but not until. Thanks, though. Thanks for playing. Appreciate you. Anyway, you get the point. So this is the world that we live in now, right? We know that the information doesn't matter. We know the overwhelming evidence. Everybody on the right will not accept the truth. They don't see that their relationship that goes back 40 years is any big deal. They don't care about any of that shit. They don't care. They do not care that Donald Trump's own son said, go to them. Russian banks owned by Russian oligarchs that funnel their money not only to themselves, but to him, but no conflict of interest. Kids in our country are fucking starving. Women are bleeding out. Marginalized communities, the LGBTQI community, in particular the trans community, are being threatened, are being erased from history. And you guys are celebrating the fact that this guy might have his feelings hurt because we talk so bad about him all the time. Susan, I didn't care that when Hunter got money from Ukraine. Susan, that is such a dumb statement. That's what you didn't care about Hunter. It's what it looks like. You're desperately digging in your dirty fingernails into the plaster. Like, we don't fucking care. You're the ones that are hung up on this shit. I know, Susan, you don't want to admit the fact that you've got a picture of Hunter's cock hanging over your bed, which is totally fine. I'm not kink shaming. You do you, boo. But give me a fucking break. Come on. What about Hunter's cock? Come on. It's such a joke. It is so it's so desperate. Oh, I'm gonna own this lib. You guys didn't care about Hunter and Ukraine. We're like, we don't fucking care. we don't fucking care. Don't give a shit. That's why we say anybody that's connected to any criminality, we expect them to be investigated, given due process, tried, and if found guilty, convicted. Now, you want to criticize Joe Biden for pardoning his son? Fine, go ahead. I don't care. Whatever. No problem. But are you going to sit there and say that, wow, it's such an egregious use of the pardon power for Joe Biden to pardon his son for crimes that rarely get charged? Fine, you can criticize that. As long as you're willing to say that Donald Trump pardoned 1,500 insurrectionist traitors, including 270 that beat up police officers. That's fine, though. Okay, I got it. Got to change my gifting goal. See that, guys? I do what my mods tell me because I'm scared of them because they'll hurt me. They really will. Let's see. I got to change it. It says not available. I don't know why. It's in the library. Okay, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do the tiny diny hamburger, whatever the fuck that is. There it is. Or the tiny diny hot dog. Thank you. Anyway, you kind of get the point. This is why you guys are losing this argument, because you sound so pathetically desperate. Like it's just a joke. Which is why we're gonna mock you. Blink twice for help. Blink twice for help. Thank you. Good call. I need a safe word to you guys, to the smartest chat on TikTok, when I feel threatened by my mod team and I'm waiting for it. Jess is going to say, always the victim. Anywho, okay, I want to get it. We're going to play part 2, and there's going to be some names in this that you're going to recognize: Christopher Steele, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Roger Stone. The segment of this Four Corner series is going to be kind of taking from what we learned yesterday, which was the specifics around where the money comes from. I guess before I get into that, though, let me kind of go back to the redistricting thing, because I just want to address a couple things that's reported. The Washington Post has a story out now where they're really starting to look at the states that have potential to really do this massive mid-decade gerrymander, which is exactly what it is. Republicans have an advantage in this because there are more seats available to the Republican Party to gerrymander than there was the Democrats, which I think, again, speaks to this whole thing. And I want to remind folks today, again, we talked about it yesterday, when President Trump goes out and says, I'm going to do away with mail-in ballots. He can't. Okay, it's not something that he can do. It's just not in the Constitution. It's very clear states run their own elections. He knows that. But the pressure campaign on legislatures to do what we're talking about is exactly what we're talking about. And then yesterday we went through the states that have supermajorities. I look at a lot of the swing states. So that's for the presidential. Now, it's going to be interesting what's going to happen come 2026, right? It's really going to be interesting because we look at Texas. There's 12 Democratic seats, 25 Republican with 1 open. The new map proposed by Republicans is going to carve out 5 seats, so 5 additional seats for Republicans. California has 43 Democrat, 9 Republican. The initial introduction of that new redistricting would be 5 more Democratic seats. Now, personally, I would say gerrymander the fuck out of all 9. Turn them into all Democratic seats, if that's why they want to play. Indiana has 2 Democrat, 7 Republican. Targeted by Republicans. That's where J.D. Vance was recently, going to Indiana. Mike Braun, I think Mike Braun is his name. Mike Braun's one of those people that believes that states should be able to decide on interracial marriage too. So that's the guy in charge there. That's cool. Ohio has 10 Republican seats, 5 Democratic seats. They're planning on releasing a new map in September. Illinois has 14 Democratic seats, 3 Republican seats. Again, that's something that J.B. Pritzker has considered. Missouri has 2 Democratic seats, 6 Republican, and Florida has 20 Republican, 8 Democrat. So this is all in play here. Mike Braun, exactly, Trump wannabe. So we don't want this, you guys. I don't think anybody, we don't want this to happen, but we're going to be left with no choice. And again, the irony of what Charlie Kirk and others have been saying, the Democrats are leaving it up to the voters, which is the way it should be, right? It's the way it should be. What the Republicans are really kind of unaware of at this point is that there's a lot of pushback from their own voters about this, from some of their own voters, like Harriet Hageman. I'm going to play some sound for you. Harriet Hageman is the lone representative from Wyoming. Much like Vermont, Wyoming has but 1 representative. She's the person that replaced Liz Cheney. Again, I will never agree with Liz Cheney's politics, and I don't like the fact that people called her a hero for standing up. No, not me. I respect her integrity, but I'm never going to call her a fucking hero because she voted with Trump like 95% of the time. So miss me with that bullshit. But she had a little bit of integrity, realizing that she put country ahead of party. Harriet Hageman, well, let me just play you this sound because it was kind of embarrassing. I mean, she's getting just dog walked by her own district. Here you go. Just listen to the way the non-answers are amazing.
Speaking of mail-in ballots that you brought up earlier, Donald Trump announced today that he would sign an executive order to abolish mail-in ballots and voting machines before the 2026 midterms. It's an unprecedented federal overreach. It flouts state authority, and it's following the advice of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Per Donald Trump's words.
Absolutely, it is.
Donald Trump's words. So, if democracy is built on secure and accessible voting, where do you stand?
So elections are run by the states. Right. So I don't know that President Trump is going to succeed at that, but it is.
Okay, that's her first comment. She's right. Elections are run by the states, and then she said, "I don't think President Trump's going to succeed at that." Okay, that's fine. That's great. That's the answer that you want. It's not enough to say I don't support it. Like you should have gone that far because you are an elected official in a representative democracy. By the way, MAGA, you can be two things at once. Like you can be slow, like you can be stupid and arrogant or racist and transphobic. You guys know that. You can also be a republic, which is a form of democracy. A constitutional republic is our system of government. We contribute to it by electing representatives. Therefore, we are a representative democracy, ruled and governed by a constitution. So I just thought I'd let you know that. So Harriet, you took an oath to that constitution to defend democracy and to defend the rights of your voters, right? Cool.
But where do you stand personally on stripping Americans from those foundational tools?
Mm-hmm.
And if you support it, then how do you defend the charge that it's more than a policy choice and not a push for authoritarian control that undermines election integrity?
You're using the right buzzwords, but buzzwords don't really mean anything when we're talking about a republic and we're talking about protecting the integrity of our elections. So I am well aware of the challenges and problems with mail-in balloting.
There is no challenges and problems with mail-in voting, Harriet. There is none. Less than 0.1% errors. Okay? It's been studied, it's been researched. And by the way, Harriet, the Republican Party benefited from mail-in ballots the last time because the party leadership finally got on board saying we really need to encourage mail-in voting because it's easy for people to vote, especially for people who don't have access to voting booths, for example. So no, there is no issues with mail-in voting other than the fabricated issues that you and your fucking dear leader created.
And you just said we need to keep it. We have to have mail-in ballots. My question to you was, how do you feel personally of stripping Americans of those foundational tools of mail-in ballots? Mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots are not foundational tools.
Yes, they are. It's a method of voting protected in the Constitution.
Exercising your right to vote without a mail-in ballot.
You can exercise your right to vote without a mail-in ballot. There it is, right? You don't need it. You can exercise your vote. Okay. The issue, though, is that mail-in voting is in your state's constitution. You can vote by mail in your state. It is in your state's constitution. Therefore, Harriet, it is a right of your voters in your state to use mail-in ballots. It is ridiculous that I'm not even going to say it.
You are absolutely fully capable of exercising your right to vote without a mail-in ballot.
They're angry.
How can I tell if anything you say is true?
Ha!
A lot of the times you say one thing and then you have like your hand behind your back being like, oh, I didn't even mean that. How can I have any trust in you, my representative?
But that is just, you can either.
You haven't given us any trust. It's weird.
You disagree with me. That isn't a trust issue.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm asking you.
That isn't a trust issue.
You heard it. She started off fine. Yeah, okay, you know, I don't think President Trump's going to do this. Then the next statement out of your mouth as an elected representative should be, I stand for your right to vote. In our Constitution, you do have the right to use mail-in ballots. I stand with you. That would be doing your fucking job as an elected representative. Just like what's going on in Texas. Quorum breaking is part of what mechanisms that they have to use. I was in a live last night. And a gentleman in there tried to create, first of all, my favorite people to talk to when you're in debate space, again, not a debate, but my favorite people to talk to are the ones who claim to be constitutionalists. I love talking to those people because they don't know shit about the Constitution. First of all, he said to me, there's a transparency clause in the Constitution. And I'm like, is that on page 24 of 23 pages? Because I don't remember a transparency clause. And then he also told me that it's legally mandated for the DPS officials in Texas to follow elected representatives 24/7. I said, can you provide examples of both of those things, please? After teacupping multiple times, he came back and said, well, it's explicit in the First Amendment that transparency is something the government's responsible to do. I'm like, really? So I read him the First Amendment. And even somebody who was on his side said, no, dude, transparency clause doesn't exist in the Constitution. And then he wouldn't answer the question about the DPS officials. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, there was a permission slip, basically, that Democrat lawmakers in Texas had to sign before they would have been allowed to leave the Capitol. Nicole Collier refused to sign it, spent the night in there, multiple nights in there, refused to sign it. Texas officials, Republican-led officials, had said, you can't leave unless you sign that. So that would be, I don't know, consent by coercion, held hostage. If you're not allowed to walk freely in your own state, doing the job that you were elected to do unless you sign a piece of paper granting the DPS officials to surveil you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because Republicans in Texas in particular and across the country are so fucking afraid of voters. They are afraid of you guys. They are desperately afraid of you because they know that if you show up to vote in numbers and push back against this bullshit, it's game over. And you notice that they generally target black women. Look at the redrawing of the maps. Jasmine Crockett, don't you think the Republicans would do anything they can to get her out of Congress? Of course they would. Of course they would. And then every other state attempting to justify it. Friends, do not let them own this argument. Okay? Do not let them. You could, if they say to you, well, Democrats are doing the same thing. Actually, no, the Democrats are leaving it up to voters. Why are the Republicans not allowing voters to decide? Well, no, they're not. Also, I don't know if you recall this, but there was this moment on the floor of I think it was the Senate in Texas, where Ken Paxton, the lieutenant governor, oversees it. And he basically told people that if you do not stand for the invocation, I will dismiss you from the chambers. That is a violation of free speech and freedom of religion. Two elements in the First Amendment for you constitutionalists out there. You can't force somebody to stand. You can't. You can't force somebody to do that. It's a violation of rights. Again, the freedom-loving constitutionalists care so much about the Constitution, don't give a fuck about the Constitution unless it's the 2A. And even then, you ignorant idiots don't even know what the history of the 2A is. You have no fucking clue. You don't want to know what it is because guess what? It's rooted in racism. You don't want to know that. So you've been taught that it's about tyranny. So think of it this way. Your claim is that arming the citizenry gives the citizenry the ability to stand up against a tyrannical government. Here's the question. Why then would tyranny and treason against the government be called out in the Constitution as crimes against the government? Then if that's the case, because that is actually in the Constitution, then why would the founding fathers say, we're going to arm you so that you can go against the tyrannical government? Then we're going to write language in the Constitution that says you can't go rise up against the government. I know logic doesn't work, but that one of the biggest lies told to the American people, in my estimation, throughout history, is what the 2A is. You don't, the only piece of the Constitution that you care about, because you don't care about free speech, you don't care about freedom of religion, you don't care about peacefully protesting, you don't care about petitioning your government, you don't care about the ability to peacefully assemble, you don't care about any of that shit. You don't care about due process rights, you don't care about citizenship. A lot of you don't care about women having the right to vote. You don't care about constitutional norms. You don't care about due process. You don't care about protections, about violations of search and seizure. You don't care about any of that shit. The only thing you care about is the 2A, and you don't even know what the fuck it stands for. Make that make sense. Make it make sense. And then here we are now, this guy bending the knee for this guy, and you don't care about that either. It's like, no, Randy, we're mocking you. We're not crying about Trump. We're mocking you because you're just a coward that you would vote for this shit. You're probably one of those patriots too, aren't you? Yeah. Like, give me a break. I'm going to speak to my Canadian neighbor to calm me down a little bit. Namaste. Good morning, buddy. How are you? Nice to see your face.
Friendly neighbor from up north. How's it going, eh?
It's going good, brother. What's going on?
Oh, got a few things going on up here. At least that's been going on over the past couple months. So I don't know if you're familiar with anything that's been happening our way, if anything's crossed your path, but Mr. No Chair Pierre, he was making headlines. Well, I can't call him No Chair Pierre anymore because he did, in fact, get a seat. Yeah, he won the by-election in the riding of Battle River Crowfoot, so he will be back in the House of Commons.
Let's back up a second. So we're talking about just so people understand what it is that we're talking about. So I know you're deep down in Canadian politics. So Pierre ran against your current in the elections in Canada, it's not a candidate, it's a party, much like it is in the UK, right?
Yep. So we had our election, and it came down to Mark Carney with the Liberal Party and Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party. And if people aren't familiar with how our system works, you don't vote for candidates, you vote for seats, right? The Liberal Party won the majority of seats.
Hang on one second, Benny. Dylan Howe, your comment, now that I understand your comment, you're from New Hampshire. That's all we need to say. Moving on. Thank you. Go ahead, Benny.
So you vote for seats. Liberal Party won the majority of seats, so Mark Carney won the position of Prime Minister. Pierre Poilievre lost his seat that he held for 20 years because he's a fucking loser and nobody likes him. So in order to secure a seat in the House of Commons and to therefore secure his position as leader of the party, they parachuted him into a riding that was heavily blue. For those who are unaware, Conservatives are blue, Liberals are red for us. So it's kind of the reverse of what you guys got going on. So he was parachuted into this riding because it was like pretty much a sure thing that he was gonna secure a seat there. They were like heavy blue. So they had to run a by-election in order for him to secure that seat. So they did. Now, there was a initiative called the Longest Ballot Initiative. There was a bunch of people that just submitted their names because in our system, you can do that. You can run as an independent, submit your name. There were a lot of people that did that. There was an independent that was running. Her name's Bonnie Critchley, and she was hitting the campaign trail hard. Unfortunately, no, she did not get enough votes. So Pierre did end up winning the by-election. So now he will be back in the House of Commons being, just being him, which is a very unlikable douchebag.
Doing his Pierre thing. Yeah, doing his Pierre thing. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I mean, it doesn't seem like people are too surprised just because of, where Western politics has kind of shifted. The Overton window has been smashed, so to speak. But, how about some good news, Benny? Tell me one good thing that's happening north of the border these days. One good thing.
Well, if you've heard about any of the wildfires that have been happening, in a lot of areas, they have been contained because we did get some rain recently. There's a particular area in the province I live in, province of New Brunswick. I have family in the area of Miramichi. There were some wildfires there, and they did confirm the other day that the wildfires were contained. So that's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for jumping in this morning, buddy. It's always good to see your face. I hope you're well. Do you want to sign off for us, my friend?
Absolutely. Steve, always a pleasure seeing you, buddy. And as I always say, elbows up. Keep your stick on the ice, folks. Take care.
Good man, buddy. Good to see you, Benny. Take care. Love Benny. Yeah, actually, we were experiencing a lot of the smoke from the wildfires. I remember walking outside this a couple weeks ago. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I realized I was on my motorcycle, and I was like hacking up a lung as I was driving up into the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. By the way, is like the land that time forgot. It is heavy Trump country up there. So if you're looking at a map of the state, it's like, well, it's this part of the state up here. And it's like across the river is New Hampshire. So it's scary up there, but that's where a lot of the wildfire smoke was coming from. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, Benny. So we live in this world now where the party that claims to be about law and order doesn't give a flying fuck. And again, I'm really enjoying the right's desperation to say, well, Bill Clinton, listen, Bill Clinton is a piece of shit. Bill Clinton cheated on his wife numerous times. He cheated on his wife when he was the governor of Arkansas. He cheated on his wife when he's at the White House. But as far as I know, there are no allegations from any girls or women on the island. I don't know. Again, I am not defending him. I'm not defending him at all. I'm just saying there's no allegations that I know of that have been levied against him. If there are, throw his ass under the fucking jail. But there are numerous allegations against Alan Dershowitz, for example, who used to be a Democrat, who is now one of Trump's most staunch defenders. And of course, the big guy, right? James Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee, has introduced or has launched this subpoena campaign against individuals. I'm going to play the sound. Okay, he was on Newsmax, a nice safe space. Newsmax, who just had to pay $70 million to Dominion for, again, lying about the accuracy and efficacy of mail-in ballot systems and voting machines, but that's just nothing to see here, right, MAGA? Again, roughly $1 billion has been paid because of lies that you believe that are still being uttered by the president today. Okay, that's fine. You can live in your land of delusion. Totally fine. No problem. So this is James Comer talking about, these big, scary subpoenas that are coming.
I just want to ask you one question, Mr. Chairman. The American people want to know what happened on Epstein Island. I'm not going to drop this topic. You've subpoenaed Bill Clinton. He's going to fight you tooth and nail with the best lawyers in the country in some cases. Do you think Bill Clinton ever actually testifies? I think his date is October 12th.
Yes. I think we have a very good chance at this. I've never lost a subpoena battle. I've been chairman of that committee for a year and a half. This is the most challenging subpoena I've ever issued. But what makes this subpoena different is that the Democrats voted with Republicans. This is a bipartisan, congressionally approved subpoena. And I think that will hold a lot of weight in court. And you're absolutely right. He's going to have the best lawyers in America fighting us tooth and toenail on this. But the fact that this was voted on by Republicans and Democrats, because we're hearing from our constituents. Everybody in America wants to know what went on at Epstein Island. And we've all heard reports that Bill Clinton was a frequent visitor there. So he's a prime suspect to be deposed by the House Oversight Committee. So hopefully we'll win that court battle with that subpoena and see President Clinton in October.
I hope so.
One thing you're right about, James, is everyone in America does want to know. My question for you, though, is this. I have your list of the people that you have said you're going to subpoena. And the people on that list are Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Merrick Garland, James Comey, Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, Robert Mueller, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, and Alberto Gonzalez. Where is Alex Acosta? He was the guy that gave Epstein the sweetheart deal. Where's Pam Bondi? She was the Florida AG at the time of that, that interesting arrangement. Where's Kash Patel? Where is Dan Bongino? Where are all the other people connected to that? Alan Dershowitz. Where's Alan Dershowitz? So miss me with your bullshit that you really want to get to the bottom of this. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Merrick Garland, Jeff Sessions, Robert Mueller, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, William Barr, and James Comey. What do James Comey, Robert Mueller, and Loretta Lynch have in common, friends? Those are all people that, again, we're going to get into Robert Mueller a little bit today. Those are all people that kind of blew the lid off a little bit. James Comey, now again, someone that they want to bring in. Don't forget, James Comey was named in the Tulsi Gabbard bullshit crap regarding this. Oh, we've got a whistle. They don't have fucking shit. They've got nothing. They've got nothing, and they know they've got nothing. The thing is, though, when they speak to their, how can I say this nicely, less than informed voters, it's an easy sell. See that? The deep state's all been that black guy in the tan suit, that President Barack Hussein Obama. I knew it was him. I knew it. It's going to be an easy sell, right? I just bent my glasses. No, whatever. Seriously. I mean, that is the game. That's the game from the very beginning. That's all they want. And like I said yesterday, and I want to apologize to you for calling all these things distractions. They are not distractions, okay? The situation in D.C., where other states, governors are sending in their National Guards, that is not a distraction. That's full-on authoritarianism. Arresting American citizens, targeting marginalized communities, in particular black communities in D.C., Ward 7 and Ward 8, calling them slums. Okay, that's not a distraction. It is distracting, but it's not a distraction. It's fucking fascism and autocracy. Exactly. It's authoritarianism. All right, that's what it is. They are attempting to distract people away from the Schmepstein tapes. We're not going to let them, are we, friends? We're not going to let them gerrymander their way to an election win. We're going to fight back. And you're starting to see it. Okay? You're starting to see it. We're not going to let them. That's what they want to have happen. So James Comer can literally go fuck himself when you've got people in his own fucking party. What's the count? Eric Swalwell, for a long time, every time he testified or spoke on the committee that he was on with James Jordan, would bring up the clock and say it's been 597 days since Jim Jordan was given a subpoena to appear before Congress, never showed up. How come you don't have an answer for that, MAGA? How come you guys don't have an answer for that? Why is that the case? Why is it the case that you are literally telling your own voters that the bill you just signed into law is going to punish them? Why? Why are you afraid? Why are you afraid to have your voters respond? You believe, you've been campaigning on it, you believe that the big ugly bill is the best thing for the working class. Then let the working class vote. Why do you need to cheat? If you feel so strongly about your policies and you feel so strongly about your vision for America, then let the voters vote. What are you afraid of? Texas. We know that Kamala Harris received more votes in the 2024 election than Greg Abbott has ever received for governor. What are you afraid of in Texas? Why don't you let your voters vote? Why are you so scared? Why? Why are you so scared in every other state? Why? Why do you want to use this bullshit rhetoric? Why do you want to go to ribbon cutting ceremonies for funding coming from the infrastructure bill or the Inflation Reduction Act? Thank you, Joe Biden. Why do you go to these ribbon cutting ceremonies with these big checks and you brag about it and then you didn't vote for it? And then you don't want to answer questions. I don't know if you saw this, but Elise Stefanik, who's in Northeastern New York, I'll change the light goal. She got booed off the stage mercilessly. And by the way, my rep in Vermont, Becca Ballant, is going over to her district and is going to hold a press event. And I am going to try to go. I don't exactly know the dates yet. It might either be Friday or Saturday. If it's Friday, I can't go because my daughter's band is playing their first gig, which is pretty cool. A second gig, technically. But if it's Saturday, I'm going to try to go. She's going to go there because what's her name? Elise Stefanik is so desperately afraid of her voters that she walks up to speak to them and she gets booed off the fucking stage. Like, that's crazy. Don't be so damn afraid. Just stand there and take it. Oh, I know. You don't care about serving your constituents. You care about power. Oh, thank you. You care about power. Let me just double check something real quick here. Okay. Heather, thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate you. Heather has started the $2 challenge today, friends. $2 towards our goal. Again, we are crowdfunded here. If you want to support the channel, that's a great way to do it. Everything is at Factsstillmatter, by the way. We are also streaming on YouTube. If you want to follow us over there, I appreciate that. I'm so tired. No, actually, I didn't sleep very well last night, but I run on energy because I love dunking on people like you that are woefully misinformed and just filled with hate. How do you survive every day with so much hatred in your heart? How do you walk around? It ages you. I speak to MAGA. They tell me that they're 28. They look like they're 74 because they walk around with so much hatred in their heart every single day. Try yoga. Maybe drink some lemon tea. You know, maybe touch some grass. You know what? Is that too woke for you? You can't walk. I know what it is. You guys don't actually like to get dirty, do you? It's unfortunate. Anyway, who's my ideal presidential nominee? It's a fair question. Excuse me. Hang on a second. I don't think there is such a thing as an ideal presidential nominee. I think that's the problem with the left. I think the left has a tendency to look for perfection. And I'm hoping that between now and the midterms and the next presidential election that I can remind you every single day that stop looking for perfection. Just stop. That's nice, Jeff. Jeff, why is it that you guys are so obsessed with genitals? It's really weird, dude. You might want to get that checked. I don't think there's such a thing as an ideal candidate. I think you have to look at the big picture. I am really warming to Gavin Newsom as a progressive. People are maybe surprised by that. The reason I say it is because I like the energy, and I think that's what's necessary. So I will wait. I'm not gonna endorse a candidate just yet. I want to see more names. I hear James Tallarico is possibly considering. Wes Moore from Maryland. We hear that name. We hear AOC potentially. I don't know yet. So I'm not ready to endorse anybody just yet. But I'm encouraging everybody on the left to stop looking for perfection. Think about what Republicans voted for, friends. They voted for a 34-time convicted felon, adjudicated sexual predator, name on a list. They voted for that. We should be able to consider maybe some questionable commentary. I mean, come on. Let's be fucking real. This is, again, I'm calling out leftists who didn't show up. I'm calling out people on the left who clutched their fucking pearls and they didn't like the way Kamala Harris's policy towards Israel. Get the fuck out of the way then. Then get the fuck out of the way because you're part of the problem too. Stop looking for perfection. You're never going to find it. We are all flawed as humans. Why would we expect our candidates to be anything other than that? Flawed. I don't want any more white dudes either. I hear it, but I also want to win an election. And I don't know who could win. I think the two elections with Hillary and with Kamala prove that our country's not yet ready to elect a woman. I don't know why. I think it's dumb, but that's where we are. I want to win. Again, I'm a progressive. I look at the Democratic Party as public transportation. I'm a pragmatic progressive. What that means is I understand what's at stake. I'll never give up my progressive values regarding universal health care, overfunding public education, overturning Citizens United, stacking the court or just aligning the court with the circuit division, etc. Banning lobbying, getting rid of insider trading, writing laws into our Constitution that bans gerrymandering. Every state has an independently drawn congressional district. Those are things that I will stand for, that I will always stand for. I know to get there, though, it's going to require me likely to vote Democrat, and that likely nominee on the Democratic side is going to be a white man, likely going to be Gavin Newsom. So that's how you win elections. And the pearl clutching we have on the left is dangerous. It's just dangerous, and we got to stop. We got to stop. Okay, so a couple more things. Let me go back to this. I talked about the states that are in play: Texas, California, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, Florida. Those are the states that are the ones that have been the most kind of talked about states when it comes to redistricting. And then the other day we went through the whether or not the states themselves can change their laws as it relates to mail-in ballots, for example. And a lot of the swing states aren't going to be able to do that because they don't have supermajorities and or they have an opposition governor. So I think about Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. I think about Wisconsin, Tony Evers. I think about Michigan with Big Gretch. I think about Arizona with Katie Hobbs, right? And there's been talk recently about why Brian Kemp has not officially declared his candidacy for the presidency, or I should say the Senate in Georgia, it's because he doesn't want what happened? Did I lose I did. I'll go back to this. He doesn't want Trump anywhere near him. Brian Kemp has future aspirations, like presidential aspirations. He does not want an endorsement for Trump, because he would, if he said he was going to run for the Senate in Georgia, he would likely get his Katie Hobbs. I'm sorry, did I say Katie Porter? Katie Hobbs. He would likely get Trump's endorsement, and he doesn't want it. Let me do this real quick. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Okay, I want to go back to I think I'm going to shift gears a little bit. Do I want to do that now, or do I want to play? Okay, I'm going to start this piece. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pivot into the part 2 of this expose that was done back in 2018 on the connections of Russia to Trump, specifically on the money side. We went through that yesterday, and let me just give you a little bit of a little summary as to what we went through yesterday. So the part 1, basically, of the 3-part series, which is the money side. We traced the financial trail, which goes back to the 80s when Trump was leveraged, and a lot of the American banks didn't want to loan him any money anymore. So Russian banks stepped in, over 60% of monies to basically rebuild his fraudulently created real estate empire came from Russian banks. Famous quote from Don Jr. saying, "We get all the money we need from Russia. We don't need American banks." We talked about how the people that were connected to a lot of this money laundering. We talked about Trump Soho, which was the property in New York that basically closed a year later, and a lot of the investment dollars came from companies connected with Bayrock, which had Russian ties. Bayrock heavily influenced with cash. Why would someone who's that heavily influenced with cash continue to invest in things that keep failing? So we kind of painted that picture there about the financial connections, which is why it's follow the money. The financial connections that literally brought Trump and Putin closer together. Trump Tower Moscow project, Michael Cohen traveling across the globe numerous times, negotiations that were happening leading up to the campaign. There was that famous moment that we discussed about how the Trump campaign literally wanted to do a meet and greet publicly with Vladimir Putin and candidate Trump on stage together for a ribbon cutting ceremony at a Trump Moscow project. And finally somebody said, we can't do that. That looks bad. Now we're going to shift into all that influence that allowed Trump to become the nominee and gain financial freedom from some of the debt. Now we're going to talk about the spy side of it. Let me just check. I've got a request from a guest here. Okay. Good morning, Equinox. How are you today? Hello?
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, my phone. Oh, my phone is being touched by my cat. I'm sorry.
That's no problem. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. It's funny. I'm the progressive in your pocket. Okay, so I'm gonna play that for you guys now, and I'm gonna navigate through this because there may be some questionable mentions of certain individuals. Just like yesterday, we're gonna play it. I'll provide commentary. So what we're gonna be listening to now is part 2 in the series called this one is referred to as hold on a second. Let me get the right one. This is Secrets, Spies, and Useful Idiots. It's a 4 corners series. We played part 1 yesterday. It was about the money connection. This is part 2, which involves, like I said, the spy network, or I should say the perception of a spy network. We're going to talk about the Steele dossier. We're going to talk about the names involved, because I think this is sort of the linchpin. The reason I'm doing this, hold on a second. Bye, sweetie. I love you too. Have a good haircut. Sorry. So we're going to talk about that. So I think it's important that the reason I want to do this is because the right is trying to retell history, either erase it or retell it. Okay. And by trying to investigate or open up or make claims that all the things told about the 2016 election was a Democratic plot. was Obama, was Clinton, etc. So that's why I'm trying to paint this picture for you. So bear with me. It's audio, but you guys can follow along because you're smart. Here we go.
In the heart of Moscow is the place that best represents what Vladimir Putin stands for. The Lubyanka, the headquarters of the old KGB.
Putin sees himself still very much as a member of that corporation, as a member of that brotherhood.
That brotherhood is now called the FSB, but it still operates inside the Lubyanka. Next door is a large toy store with a giant neon Pinocchio. A reminder that in this city, spies like Vladimir Putin have always been the puppet masters.
Whenever he can, he has reaffirmed his allegiance to the Russian secret police. He is still a KGB agent. That's how he sees himself.
I think, yeah.
And don't forget, we talked about this yesterday about how his specialty area was grooming and cultivating assets, potentially, and then the misinformation, disinformation, propaganda strategies that he continues to use to this day. So once, as she just spoke about, once a KGB agent, always a KGB agent, okay?
You have to remember how things work in Russia. No big decisions are made. They all go to one guy, Putin. So certainly, what Putin is doing is waging warfare against the United States. That wouldn't be going on without not just his acquiescence.
This is James Clapper. James Clapper is one of the people that has been identified by Tulsi Gabbard as someone who was part of this plot that was, that was intentionally violating the law. So again, the reason I'm telling you this story now is because these are the people that have been identified in this, whistleblower, biggest scam in history, James Clapper, James Comey, all these people, right? That's why James Clapper's name is mentioned in Tulsi Gabbard's bullshit, because the Trump team does not like the fact that they uncovered all this crap, okay? Follow the money.
Or his blessing, but his active direction. And again, remember his background. It's a KGB product.
James Clapper was Obama's Director of National Intelligence, the most senior intelligence official in the US during the election campaign.
And there's a long history of their trying to involve themselves and influence elections in our country since at least the 1960s, but never, ever as aggressive, direct, and multi-dimensional as this interference in our election process. And they clearly were interested in the Russians were, I think, in penetrating the Trump campaign.
Hey now.
And the next president of the United States, Mr. Donald J. Trump.
Throughout the 2016 campaign, grassroots support for the rogue Republican candidate grew as Trump continued to welcome the endorsement of the Russian leader.
Putin called me a genius. Putin said Donald Trump is a genius.
I want you to pay close attention to this particular section, right? Because as we discussed yesterday, one of the strategies of KGB and, the mind games that the Russian, secret police, the KGB, the FSB, the GRU is really, really good at is the stroking of the ego of the narcissists, right? So think about what Trump is sitting here saying right now. Putin called me, tells me I'm great. That's putting the hooks in. Right? So again, there's the financial leverage from the 80s, all the Russian money, and then you got the Russian president telling me I'm great.
They all said, Ira, thank you. She said, you are. That's where I live. But Putin said good things about me. He said he's a leader and there's no question about it. He's a genius. I love you all. Thank you, Ohio. Thank you.
When news broke that Russia had hacked the emails of the Democratic National Committee, directly interfering in the election, Trump not only defied political convention, he flirted with notions of treason.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press.
Wow.
By the time of the first presidential debate in late September 2016, Russian espionage during the campaign was a hot topic.
I was so shocked when Donald
Hillary.
publicly invited Putin to hack into Americans. That is just unacceptable. It's one of the reasons why 50 national security officials who served in Republican administrations have said that Donald is unfit to be the commander-in-chief.
I don't think anybody knows it was Russia that broke into the DNC. She's saying Russia.
Well, we do know. We knew then, we know now, right?
Russia, but I don't, maybe it was. I mean, it could be Russia, but it could also be China.
Again, this is the part of the story that doesn't get told here, right? There's an opportunity for him on the debate stage in 2016 to admonish Russia, to say, we do not tolerate this. We do not tolerate this hacking. Instead, what does he do? I don't know if it's Russia. Maybe it's Russia. It could be China. I don't know. Seriously, Russia, if you're listening, okay.
Could also be lots of other people. It also could be somebody sitting on their bed that weighs 400 pounds, okay?
What?
Only a week earlier, as the candidates were doing their debate prep, a former spy arrived discreetly in the US Capitol on a mission involving the presidential election. Not a Russian spy in this case, but an ex-MI6 agent and Russia expert, now working as a corporate investigator. His name was Christopher Steele.
Christopher Steele, in case you don't know, this is the Steele dossier. That's who Christopher Steele is, and we'll get into this. And this isn't. There's a lot of elements in here that a lot of people probably don't know about, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the veracity of the Steele dossier, but this, I think, helps paint the picture.
He was hired in the spring of 2016 by Fusion GPS, a lobbying firm. The ultimate client was the Democratic Party. Chris didn't know that, but the question was, what is Donald Trump's relationship with Russia? So he funneled this out to his secret sources, and he waited.
Steele was an MI6 agent in Moscow in the 1990s.
Sorry, I didn't keep interrupting. I want people to go into this thinking what we've been told about Christopher Steele. Okay, and I'm not defending him. I'm just asking you to use the information that you're going to hear, and I'm also going to provide you some additional information when we get through it. Let me start the flash goal first here. Start it. It's what is it today? It's hearts. We need 40 individual hearts, friends. Thank you very much. So then you can make some determinations as to what you think based on all the things that have been told about him, right? So you can then have some more information.
As a private investigator, he'd worked on Russian cases for decades.
The former head of our Secret Service had a very high opinion of him, and that his professional colleagues that I know also had a good opinion as to his professional honesty and commitment. Like any senior British intelligence officer, he would have had close relations with various branches of US intelligence.
In mid-2016, Steele's sources had provided shocking answers to the question about Trump's links to Russia.
What his sources were telling him was that essentially there was a conspiracy. First of all, there was a real-time espionage operation to try and affect the outcome of the 2016 election and to push Donald Trump across the line.
Steele first passed the information to the FBI, but believing they'd take...
Again, that was some of the lies that have been told by the right, is that he did this covertly. He found this information, and as he's supposed to do, he handed it over to the FBI, okay?
No action, decided to meet with a hand-picked group of journalists, including veteran Washington reporter Michael Isikoff.
It was at a private room at the Tabard Inn, and it was all business. I mean, Steele was there. It was clear he took this matter very seriously. I think that he thought he was sitting on some bombshell information that deserved to get out.
The former spy had gathered raw intelligence into a dossier about members of the Trump campaign and their links to Russia. The information Isikoff focused on was about the recent trip to Moscow of a Trump foreign policy advisor called Carter Page.
He told me that Page had meetings in Moscow in which he discussed the Trump campaign and help that the Russians could provide the Trump campaign in exchange for which Trump would be favorably disposed to lift sanctions on Russia. But what really got my attention was he said that he had reported this to the FBI because he believed it was a
he left. Okay.
National security matter. Reached a source in the U.S. government who was aware of the particular allegations in this Steele dossier about Carter Page and confirmed to me that the FBI was indeed taking this seriously, was indeed investigating. It was the first story to report that there was an investigation by the U.S. intelligence community into somebody involved in the Trump campaign and their ties to Moscow.
So just as a reminder, Christopher Steele, former MI6 agent, had contacts because he's part of the spy network, had contacts across the globe, was being fed information from the Russian government about Trump's connections to Russian money in particular. And then it turned into a whole bunch of stuff. And then we're going to talk about, the veracity of the Steele dossier, because, yes, legitimate criticism about how the FISA warrants were obtained by using the Steele dossier. But the information that they found as a result of it led to convictions and arrests, okay? Sorry, friends. This is called Four Corners. It's a 3-part series produced by Australian ABC network. It came out in 2018.
The ritzy streets of Midtown Manhattan, home to Trump's headquarters and former Moscow banker and naval officer Carter Page. Page was barely known in political circles when Donald Trump named him as an advisor in March 2016. 2 years later, he's still embroiled in the Trump-Russia investigation.
Keep something in mind here. This is during right now, June 18th, 2018. This is during the time of the Mueller investigation. Okay, so when she talks about things that are happening, it was because, or a lot of information that wasn't yet disclosed, because the Mueller report had not come out yet. Okay?
In every way, it's a witch hunt. There is zero basis for anything related to the controversy surrounding myself.
What do you mean by witch hunt?
Well, let's look at the definition of a witch hunt, right? This is a situation where you're trying to explain away things that you don't expect to happen. So you start attacking individuals. And that's exactly the situation that we have in this instance, right?
How did an obscure Russophile like Carter Page get catapulted into Trump's advisory team?
Wouldn't it be great if we actually got along with Russia? Am I wrong in saying that? Wouldn't it be great?
Here we go again, right? Again, that's the perception. That is the impression that he has sold his base. What's wrong with Russia? Why can't we get along with Russia? What's wrong with the president of Russia telling me that I'm great? What's wrong with Russian money being funneled in American politics? What's wrong with Russia? Everything is wrong with Russia. They are infiltrating our system. They are destabilizing our democracy. And the president of the United States now has been involved in it. It's not a stretch to say it.
It would be really nice if we got along with Russia. And wouldn't it be nice if we teamed up with Russia?
The boss, Mr. Trump, wanted better relations with Russia.
Teamed up.
He wanted that as one of his top priorities.
Putin said some very good things about me.
Unreal.
Putin is saying nice things about me. Okay. He's a strong guy.
J.D. Gordon was director of the Trump campaign's National Security Committee. In early 2016, the candidate came under pressure to explain where his foreign policy advice was coming from.
President Trump was criticized because he told
this part, okay, again, foreign policy, okay, this part, I had to listen to it again. So the question was, where was Donald Trump getting his foreign policy advice from, okay?
the media the truth about his foreign policy advice. He says he watched the shows. He got his information from people on Saturday shows, Sunday shows, and he got criticized for that quite a bit. So he was basically put in a position where he had to come up with a foreign policy team right away.
God.
Trump brought a list of advisors to an interview with the Washington Post.
Mr. Trump, welcome to the Washington Post. We heard you might be announcing your foreign policy advisory team soon. If there's anything you can share with us.
Well, you know, I hadn't thought in terms of doing it. If you want, I could give you some of the names. Carter Page, PhD. George Papadopoulos. He's an oil and energy consultant. Excellent guy. And I have quite a few more.
George Papadopoulos, oil and energy consultant. He's an excellent guy. Okay, remember that.
In the chaos of the Trump campaign, Carter Page wasn't a first pick.
Had the list that Senator Sessions and I have been working on made it first to President Trump, Carter Page obviously would not have been on that list because we did not know who he was.
Every presidential campaign,
Roger Stone,
a veteran of 10, forms a foreign policy advisory committee. They have no authority to speak for the campaign. They're zealous. In the case of Carter Page, he's smart enough to know that if you can get on the committee, that's a marketable quality abroad, and he's in the business of making money. If he does it legally, there's nothing wrong with that.
You weren't a well-known figure in foreign policy circles, but you did have some substantial experience in Moscow. Tell me about that.
You know, and this is another misnomer, right, where people play up that I'm just the Russia guy, right? And I think that was part of the reason I was such a central target when they wanted to start this witch hunt, false storyline about, you know, some corrupt intent or quote unquote collusion with Moscow. Well, here's someone who actually lived there and worked there.
Carter Page worked in Moscow for US bank Merrill Lynch in 2004 for 3 years. At the time, Sergei Alexishenko was chairman of Merrill Lynch Moscow. He worked with Carter Page. Alexishenko was also deputy chairman of the Russian Central Bank.
He spent several years in Moscow, but he was not able to speak Russian fluently.
Did he stand out in the company?
No. He left Merrill Lynch. It seems to me it was in 2007, and 2007 when he recognized he will not be promoted. At least from the time I know him, he was very naive, and as I read what he said in interviews, what he read in Moscow, how he behaved himself in Moscow, he was very naive.
He said he was an informal advisor to the Kremlin. Does that sound like the Carter you know?
Nothing close to the truth. Yeah. Look, he was once again, he was a very, very medium-level guy with no exceptional relationships.
I honestly am not sure I can sort him out in my own mind, whether he was doing something nefarious or was just naive. I don't know.
James Clapper again.
But I do know that he was a matter of concern to the FBI since he was on their scope since about 2013 for his interactions with known Russian operatives.
So again, that's an important detail because the lie that Tulsi Gabbard and the Trump administration, in an attempt to distract people away from the fact that he's on the Epstein schmist, sorry, Jess, the list, is that this all came about at the time of the election when the FBI had been looking into Carter Page and others long before the announcement of candidate Trump. Okay, so again, history is important to tell the full story, which is why we're doing it today.
With no proper vetting of its hastily announced team, the Trump campaign was unaware that only a few years earlier, Carter Page was groomed as an asset by Russian spies. The spies were based here at the Russian mission to the UN in New York. The mission is used as cover for Russia's Foreign Spy Service, the SVR, to carry out espionage on US soil. Deep inside the building is a special room used for secret communications. In 2013, the FBI found a way to listen in. According to the FBI, Russian spies used the secure room to transmit their reports back to Moscow Center. It sounds like something out of a Cold War novel, but the reality is deadly serious. The FBI was able to get round the security here and record 2 Russian agents discussing their latest target, Carter Page. The 2 agents were Viktor Podobny and Igor Sporyshev.
I also promised him a lot, that I have connections in the trade representation, meaning that I can push contracts. This is intelligence method to cheat. You promise a favor for a favor, you get the documents from him and tell him to go fuck himself.
How do you promise a favor for a favor, and then once you get what you're looking for, you tell him to go fuck yourself? Go fuck himself. Okay.
Did Podobny approach you? How did you come across him?
This was another complete nothing of a story, right? I met this junior diplomat,
This is Carter Page.
20-something-year-old guy, and we had a chat at the Asia Society up on Park Avenue here. And we had a chit-chat, no big deal. We exchanged cards and stayed in touch a little bit.
The way that they work, sometimes they'll spot someone who looks like they might be potentially of some interest, and they'll take a look at them and see whether the person has interesting access, that is to power brokers in the United States, and then whether they might be suitable for clandestine operations.
In a series of meetings in New York, Page gave Podobny information on the energy market that was publicly available.
The level of interaction and engagement with him and the types of things we talked about, if you talk about intelligence gathering, let's just put it this way, that it was at a much lower level than my average student sitting in my classroom at NYU.
So what we know is that Carter Page's defense is that the things that were told about him were not true. And we have people saying, well, it absolutely is true because here's the receipts. So Carter Page using terms like witch hunt, gee, where have I heard that before? Anyway.
In the FBI transcripts of their conversations, the spies focused on Carter Page's interest in Russia's biggest energy company, Gazprom.
He went to Moscow and forgot to check his inbox, but he wants to meet when he gets back. I think he's an idiot. He got hooked on Gazprom, thinking that if they have a project, he could rise up. Maybe he can. I don't know. But it's obvious he wants to earn loads of money.
Without a doubt.
For now, his enthusiasm works for me.
They're talking about Gazprom, right? I know some of the top people in that company. If they were actually going to bribe me or to try to do some crazy scheme for whatever purpose, I don't know whatever conspiracy theory you want to throw out there, you think, they might do that, more directly with some better contact, either in Moscow or London or something, rather than this, 20-something-year-old kid in New York.
That's your excuse? Okay.
The FBI decided it was time to step in. They called Carter Page to a meeting at the Plaza Hotel near his office to tell him the real identity of the man he was dealing with. It must have been a surprise when the FBI came to see you.
I had been speaking to the CIA and FBI on countless occasions over decades, right? No big deal.
Over decades, my guy, you were in your early 20s at this time. So no, you had not been speaking to the FBI for decades. No.
So, surprise? No, not really.
But, in this case,
people reach out to me. Come on. I'm happy to help. It's similar to my volunteering in the Trump campaign.
Sure, though Podobny was an agent for the SVR, he was the real thing, and he was trying to cultivate you as an asset.
Yes, he was.
That's a
He
real
never
thing.
cultivated anything as an asset, so it's a complete misnomer.
Did you hear that? That's what cultivation does. Oh, no. While I'm being cultivated, they weren't cultivating me. So do you think Donald Trump would admit that he's been cultivated and groomed by the Kremlin for years? Or Paul Manafort? Or George Papadopoulos? Or Michael Flynn? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? You were being cultivated, friend. That's exactly what was happening. Oh, no. He didn't cultivate anybody. Okay, cool.
The spies were indicted for espionage in 2015, but because they had diplomatic cover, they were allowed to leave the US. Carter Page wasn't accused of any wrongdoing, but he was now on the FBI's books as a potential Russian asset.
We have some big numbers coming in.
By the middle of 2016, Donald Trump was close to clinching the Republican nomination.
Together, we accomplished what nobody thought was absolutely possible.
Behind the scenes, Page was trying to insert himself into the campaign.
It's going to be beautiful. Remember that.
I told him I didn't need to hear anything he had to say about Russia because he had all these ideas and thoughts. And I said, Carter, look, Mr. Trump's worldview is fairly clear. He wants to have better relations with Russia. We don't need to get into the details of that. You don't need that for the campaign.
Page.
And real quick, just think about that statement that Mr. Trump wants to have a better relationship with Russia. Why do we think that is, friends? Think about what we discussed and learned yesterday about all of the money, the billions of dollars coming from laundered. I mean, make that argument, right? Money that just disappeared. Numerous examples of Russian money, dark money being invested into Trump properties, bailing him out, repaying his debts, creating leverage. And then when the president becomes the nominee, at the time the candidate, when the candidate becomes the nominee, you go public and say, I want us to have a better relationship with Russia. Why do we think that is?
Might have continued to fly under the media radar had he not accepted an invitation during the campaign to deliver a speech in Russia.
I'd spoken to a lot of the top universities in Moscow countless times before over the years, and I was offered, invited to come then.
I advised him against it. I thought it would reflect poorly on the campaign and it would generate a lot of negative publicity. He eventually went around me to the campaign chairman and got permission anyway, and he went. And we've been paying the price since then, unfortunately.
Page had been selected by the Russians to give the commencement speech at the new economic school in Moscow. The same.
Again, but not cultivated, right? Chosen by the Russians to speak at a prestigious economic school in Russia, but not cultivated, not groomed, not have the ego stroke. Nope, none of that.
Event President Barack Obama spoke at in 2009. Page's mostly turgid address included one section on Russia, bound to please his hosts.
Thank you very much. Washington and other Western capitals have impeded potential progress through their often hypocritical focus on ideas such as democratization, inequality, corruption, and regime change.
That's crazy. God.
On his journey home, Page emailed the Trump campaign, boasting of the high-level contacts he'd made in Moscow, fueling speculation that there was more going on than a simple speech. He wrote, I'll send you guys a readout soon. regarding some incredible insights and outreach I've received from a few Russian legislators and senior members of the presidential administration here. Is it possible that you were overstating your connections in order to make yourself look good with a campaign? We call it big noting in Australia.
So, I mean, what is the basis for your conspiracy theory?
It's not so much conspiracy theory. I'm just asking whether you were exaggerating the contacts you'd had.
What I can explain to you is the nature of the constant interrogation I've had for 2 years
Such
now,
a victim.
right?
Aw.
You are typical, no offense to you, but you're typical of what I have to deal with all the time, right?
God.
To be straight, what we're looking for is clarity. That's all. So there's a series of things that have been said about
what you're saying is taking a step away from clarity.
Well, let's go back
just throwing more mud, in the water. So
let's go back to clarity. We'll get on. Let's get on track to that, because obviously what happened as a result of that particular trip is that your life went really significantly off the rails.
No, but you're insinuating that that's me. That's not my actions. That's the fact that they have a photo of me in Moscow, right? So if you have this false theory out there and you want to attack someone, and you have someone who's a supporter of this individual and a photo of him in Moscow, this is the wonderful jackpot. And that's what it's all about.
So that is Carter Page. For those of you that are just joining, this is a 3-part documentary called Four Corners. It's about Trump and Russia. We talked about financial connections yesterday. This is about the espionage. And then on Friday, tomorrow or Friday, we'll finish this with the election and then post-presidency, et cetera. But this is Carter Page, who's instrumental in this.
Dan Hoffman was one of America's top spies. He was CIA station chief in Moscow. He's back now in the CIA homeland of Virginia. Hoffman recognizes Page's potential value as a target for Russian espionage.
If Carter Page had asked me before he went to Moscow, hey, what should I be concerned about? I would have said, you're under a microscope like you've never been. You are a person of interest and they will be tracking you.
We don't know who was tracking Page on the Russian side, but the former MI6 officer Christopher Steele was being sent information about Page from his sources in Moscow.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave.
Less than 2 weeks after Page's trip, Steele filed a memo recording details of Page's visit to Moscow. According to Steele, Page had met senior Russian officials, including Igor Sechin, head of Russian oil giant Rosneft, Russia's second largest state-owned energy company.
Rosneft is a huge, it's a big, grabbed assets, stolen assets, nationalized assets of other companies. I would say it's oil production, so it's really a big company.
Rosneft HQ sits on the Moscow River overlooking the Kremlin. CEO Igor Sechin is a close ally of Putin's. Igor Sechin was personally targeted by the US sanctions imposed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the toughest sanctions ever imposed by the US on Russia. Michael McFaul was ambassador to Moscow under Obama. Igor Sechin had a great interest, a profound interest in having those sanctions lifted.
Without question. Remember, he's on the sanctions list. He can't travel to the United States. And it's hard.
And remember, again, because the accusations coming from the right, in particular Trump, because of his obsession with the guy in the tan suit, the black man in the tan suit, was that the Obama administration did nothing in regards to Russia's activities in Ukraine, when they just, the largest layers of sanctions that we've ever issued as a country, including now, right? So again, no more bullshit. That's why we're doing this, because history's important.
hard to be the CEO of the largest oil company in Russia if you can't travel to the United States when your chief partner is located in Houston.
Did you meet Igor Sechin on your visit to Moscow?
Never. I never met him then, and I never met him.
Who do you believe?
At any time in my life.
Steel sources claim that Sechin offered energy deals for the US if Trump would lift the sanctions, and a personal kickback for Carter Page.
What I can tell you for sure, without question, is there was never any discussion of any quid pro quo or anything I myself or anyone, I was supporting at the time could possibly do to change that one particular policy, which is sort of a piece of minutia in a much broader set of issues.
The sanctions issue isn't a minutia issue. It's a big deal. Whatever else we know that those people who are targeted by sanctions would very much like those sanctions to be lifted. So it is a significant subject.
To me, it is minutia. So you're free to have your opinion.
Of course it is to you, because you're a part of it.
I think now I'm free to have mine.
Page has repeatedly.
Do you guys catch this, right? I mean, this is really, to me, this is the connection between the espionage, Carter Page and the spies and the money, because the Russian oligarchs connected to the Russian energy industry were just sanctioned the shit out of them individually and their companies. And they needed this guy to be in the White House to remove the sanctions. And guess what happened when he got elected? Shocker.
He denied meeting Sechin in Moscow, but under oath to a congressional committee, he conceded he had met with another Rosneft official, Andrei Baranov.
So what? I mean, this is a complete joke. We went to a party to watch the Euro Cup football match, right? It's organized by a bank, a packed bar in Moscow. There's tons of people there, and we're watching a football game. Portugal, I think, was playing Wales that day, and everyone's focused on Ronaldo's goal, right? So that was sort of the topic of conversation. I had a brief chat, and so this is just sort of the desperation of various DNC operatives to this day trying to make something out of nothing.
The desperation of DNC operatives. Okay, Carter, that's a cool story, bro.
So, did you discuss sanctions with Baranov?
I can't say that. I'm careful in terms of the wording, right? Sanctions is a topic that people in the economy talk about at some point. Did it possibly come up? I have no recollection. I have no idea. It may have been a couple of words in passing.
Okay.
It's interesting because Page denied everything. Just sort of sweeping, this is all nonsense, nothing like this is true. When he finally was forced to testify before the House Intelligence Committee, turns out that those denials were not quite as airtight as he initially suggested.
Shocker.
It does suggest that there was something real that Steele was picking up on.
And again, it's really important to note here that the criticism of from the right for years, right, through the first Trump administration, during the Biden administration, and now has always been about the Steele dossier, not about Carter Page, not about somebody that you brought in, that you named specifically as being a member of your national security team, along with George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn. All this information came from elements of the Steele dossier. Notice where the criticism goes, not to the people connected to Russia, but to the person who found the connections to Russia, right?
The former Moscow station chief has a different theory about the information Steele collected.
I can tell you from my own experience, it's extraordinarily difficult to collect intelligence inside Russia. It's especially difficult to do it in that way when the person who was collecting that information, Steele, didn't travel himself to Russia. The Russians might have been tracking him as well, and certainly tracking his sources, traveling inside to Russia or trying to collect information inside Russia. And then once they spotted that, if my theory is right, then they would have used the dossier as a conduit for their own disinformation.
He's not part of our national security or foreign policy.
When news of Page's trip to Russia broke in the media, he was denounced by the Trump team.
Is he not part of the campaign anymore? He's not part of the campaign anymore?
He's certainly not part of the campaign that I'm running, meaning we don't have him. We have a number of people, fabulous people, men and women, as part of our national security and foreign policy team, and he's not among them.
Again, Kellyanne Conway, right? They realized that there's this massive smoking gun connected to Carter Page and all of his contacts and all the things you just heard, right? And then they said, we have a fabulous foreign policy team. That foreign policy team also included not Paul Manafort, but indirectly, Michael Flynn, George Papadopoulos, okay? Convicted felons, by the way, pardoned by Donald Trump. Cool.
Unfortunately, Carter Page fell right into the trap. He walked right into the lion's den, dragging the rest of us with him. And deep state folks like James Comey, they latched onto this piece of evidence to say, oh, there could be collusion. Carter Page.
You must have felt bad about the fact that...
Think about what he just said. It's the deep state folks like James Comey, people who investigated this shit and found the connections. So who's the deep state? The deep state are the people that are covering it up. Not the investigation was proven true, confirmed in the Mueller report and the Durham report and the Horowitz report that yes, in fact, Russia interfered in the 2016 election. Here's all the names. You can criticize the FISA warrants that were issued as a result of the Steele dossier. That's fine. That's legitimate criticism. But what was uncovered led to arrests, led to convictions. Carter Page being removed from the Trump campaign. Why would you do that? Why would you do that unless you found something interesting?
That I think you said that you'd caused embarrassment to the campaign.
I didn't cause embarrassment to the campaign.
Yes, you did.
To be clear.
Yes, you did.
This is a complete smear from, people that were paid millions of dollars in this big dollar-funded propaganda campaign to just tear someone down.
Okay.
So it's pretty sad, actually.
Okay. Baby bottles in the chat for Carter Page. Thank you.
Page was investigated by the FBI, but never charged with wrongdoing. He was out of the campaign. But another of Trump's foreign policy advisors was targeted by Russian spies in a game with even higher stakes. It's been a bitterly cold winter in Chicago, another city where the Trump brand has made its mark. This is the hometown of Donald Trump's former foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, one of the central characters in the case for collusion.
The question you always ask is, are they witting or unwitting of Russian interest in them? So Papadopoulos may not have been witting of Russian intelligence interest in him.
Papadopoulos was arrested last October for lying to the FBI about his Russian contacts during the campaign.
He said that when I was arrested, I gave your number to the agents, say, please call her to say, what's happened to me.
You're not going to hear from Papadopoulos in this because the investigation was still happening. So this is his wife, who's, by the way, an attorney, a Russian attorney who represented Russian citizens in the U.S. for various crimes. That's who you're hearing now.
His wife, Simona, a lawyer, is telling his story because he can't. Papadopoulos is cooperating with Mueller's investigation of Trump campaign officials.
When time is right, he will share his own experience. So as far as I know, Russia was a priority, and they were informed about every initiative he would take, and his purpose was to look bigger and to please his bosses.
George was a young guy in his 20s, a very ambitious guy, but he really didn't have the qualifications to be on the National Security Advisory Committee.
Δύο μέρες πριν τις εκλογές,
He didn't have the qualifications, yet he was on the committee. There's a track record there, right? You heard it. He was, don't forget, Donald Trump in that famous Washington Post interview that we played a little while ago, he bragged about his qualifications. He said he's a brilliant guy. He bragged about his qualifications, much like we see now. Pete Hegseth, Caroline Leavitt, Mike Walls, all these, Kash Patel, Dan Benino, all these people in his cabinet, are they qualified? No. But what do these people have in common? Back in 2016, they all had contacts with Russia. Full stop.
Just like Carter Page, Papadopoulos was plucked from obscurity to join Donald Trump's team of advisors.
I inherited George and I inherited Carter and the others. So my job was to manage them and to make sure that they didn't embarrass the campaign, didn't embarrass Mr. Trump.
All talk, no action.
In the end, what happened to Papadopoulos went way beyond embarrassment. Papadopoulos' story takes us to London, the location of so many Russian spy stories from the Cold War to the present day. Here in 2016, soon after he was named as an advisor to the Trump campaign, Papadopoulos was cultivated by a Maltese professor, Joseph Mifsud.
I'm sorry, can I just give Hunter's mom some cred? Hunter's mom said the only actual qualified person Trump hired was Stormy. That's fucking brilliant. Thank you for that. I appreciate you very much for saying that. Sorry.
And boasted of high-level Kremlin contacts.
He's not someone that Papadopoulos would have been worried about meeting. What you don't realize is that behind that guy, maybe there are some nefarious people with some nefarious aims.
Until this name came up, which is Joseph Mifsud. At the time, I didn't know it was the genesis of the Russian investigation. I didn't know any of that.
La filosofia può aiutare.
Professor Joseph Mifsud taught at universities in the UK and Europe and ran an organisation called the London Centre of International Law Practice. Simona worked here for Mifsud.
They never paid me. And they said, don't worry, you have to think big, they told me. Joseph Mifsud said, you have to think big. You don't have to think about the salary. I thought everything was a facade for something different. I thought everything was extremely unclear and unprofessional. And my feeling were it was the most shady person I ever met.
Did you have any sense of his connections to Russia at that point?
Yes, because he was constantly in Moscow.
Professor Mifsud's first offer to Papadopoulos was to use his connections in the Kremlin to broker a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump.
I wish he could organize such a meeting.
Between Trump and Putin?
Yes.
Excited by the prospect, he took Mifsud's offer to a meeting of the Foreign Policy Committee, headed by future Attorney General Jeff Sessions, with the candidate Donald Trump.
The one meeting we did have with President Trump in March of 2016, George floated the idea of a meeting with Putin and Mr. Trump. And that meeting idea was shot down by Senator Sessions, and the senator asked us not to ever speak about it again because it was a bad idea for a lot of reasons.
And think about that. So that's Jeff Sessions, right? Who was the Attorney General. Jeff Sessions, who recused himself from the Mueller investigation. And people want to know why? It's because of all this kind of stuff. And Donald Trump expected Jeff Sessions to step in and support him during this. And this is what boggles my mind. We'll get back to this in a second. This is what boggles my mind, is that no one who supports Trump think that there's anything wrong with what we're playing here. Like, I mean, this, you're, how do I want to say this? it's beyond just the surface level shit that we know of, right? It's beyond that. It's how deep these connections go, and all of it goes back to the Kremlin because of Russian money, oligarch influence, the energy industry, all of it. And people on the right these days think it's no big deal. What's wrong with having a relationship with Russia? This is what's wrong with having a relationship with Russia. When Vladimir Putin says you lost the election because of mail-in voting, and then 48 hours later, Trump goes out with an executive order saying we're going to do away with mail-in voting. That's what's wrong with it. Do you understand? Oh, you don't, but you guys do because you're the smartest chat on TikTok.
Are contradictory accounts of what happened in this meeting. Others at the meeting say this idea was dismissed, but Papadopoulos has said something different. He's told Mueller's investigators that he believes he got a green light.
What was his understanding about whether it was encouraged to continue?
I can't answer straight to this question because, again, it's the hot topic of the investigation, but I would give my personal opinion, which is it's very unlikely that a young foreign policy advisor would take an initiative or put forward an initiative without the blessing of the campaign.
So again, that's an important point, right? So the argument was that Jeff Sessions and others squelched the whole thing, don't talk about it again, but the reach out continued. So in Papadopoulos' mind, or in his statements, or in his references, he would not have done that unless there was some direction from the campaign. Again, which is part of why, in my opinion, that Jeff Sessions was removed from his post. Because Sessions got in the way of Donald Trump getting a deeper relationship with Vladimir Putin. There, that's what I'll say it. That's what I think it is. And she's speaking, saying why he wouldn't have continued this on his own. There's no way, right? Okay. And come to find out later that we were right about that.
Papadopoulos says his efforts to make contact with the Kremlin were approved by senior campaign officials. He checked everything with the campaign. He wasn't running around doing it himself.
No, never. Steve Bannon, definitely. Michael Flynn, yes, he was in touch with them. Brian Lanza.
And all of them, Steve Bannon, Lanza, Flynn, all encouraged him to continue his liaison with Russians.
Yes.
Yes.
He was trying to set up a meeting between Putin and Trump, and never was stopped in this purpose.
Unreal.
On April the 26th, Mifsud invited Papadopoulos to breakfast at a hotel in London's business district. This was 2 months before the news broke about the Russian attack on the Democratic National Committee.
2 months before.
Professor Mifsud had just returned from a trip to Russia. He had astonishing news. Over breakfast, Mifsud told Papadopoulos that he'd met high-level Russian officials on his trip to Moscow. Those officials, he said, had dirt on candidate Hillary Clinton in the form of thousands of emails. It's not clear where Mifsud got his information or why he passed it on to the young American, but the information was correct. It seems likely that the Russians targeted George Papadopoulos to pass that information back to the Trump campaign.
There's that possibility the Russians were throwing this out as, a little bit of churn in the water, a little blood in the water there for the sharks to come out. And it would have been the kind of thing that they would have been happy to give up, and it would have served their purposes. And the best way, for Vladimir Putin, the best way to soil our democratic process is link it in some conspiratorial way back to Kremlin.
Did George tell the campaign what Mifsud had told him?
This is the object of the investigation going on, so there is secrecy out of that. I can't talk about it.
He did, which led to the indictments.
For the special prosecutor looking for evidence of collusion, this piece of the puzzle could prove to be critical. We don't know who in the campaign Papadopoulos told about the Russians' stolen emails. But we do know he passed on the information to another contact in London soon afterwards. At a wine bar in South Kensington, Papadopoulos met Australia's High Commissioner, Alexander Downer. How did he come to meet Alexander Downer?
I think he was introduced to him by his assistant.
Downer's colleague from the High Commission organised and attended the meeting, a witness to the conversation. It's been widely reported that Downer and Papadopoulos were drunk. Both men deny it.
I don't know how many they had to drink, the two guys, the ambassador and George. It basically fed into this witch hunt of here's this kid in his 20s mouthing off to this Australian ambassador who he probably shouldn't have even been with in the first place, both of them over drinks. And then that gets through the Australian intelligence to the US national intelligence agencies.
Papadopoulos told Downer that the Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton and were planning to use it. Downer promptly cabled the startling information back to Canberra. After careful deliberation, it was passed on to the American authorities, prompting the FBI to open an investigation and send agents to London to interview Downer. So, the now far-reaching investigation into whether Trump or his associates colluded with the Kremlin may have started here, at the Kensington wine rooms, with Australia's former foreign minister.
You know, opening up an investigation about a presidential candidate's campaign in the midst of a campaign, that's a big step to take. And the FBI is going to be cautious about doing something like that. Doesn't necessarily mean that they think that there's active collaboration by people in the Trump camp, although you can't rule that out. But you want to understand what a major foreign adversary is doing on your soil.
Last year, 6 months into the new presidency, after a summer holiday with Simona, Papadopoulos flew back to the US. He was still hoping to secure a job in the Trump administration.
I was with my sister in Rome and just waiting for his flight to land. Then he was messaging me from the shuttle train. And then he told me, I see somebody staring at me in a suit and tie, and it's quite weird look. I thought he was paranoid, maybe he's jet lagged.
The man in the red tie was an FBI agent. He arrested Papadopoulos and took his phone. And then silence.
Yeah. They put him to jail, then to the courtroom, all this in a space probably of 48 hours. And he was literally scared to death.
To the best of my knowledge, George Papadopoulos never had a Donald Trump email address ever in his life. He was a volunteer like the tens of...
That's Corey Lewandowski, who was former campaign manager. So all these people, this is the strategy, right? So think about this, what we learned yesterday and today. Anybody who's got dirt, the campaign immediately attempts to distance themselves from them. Not always, but in many cases. So it was Carter Page who kicked him out. Papadopoulos had no cred, shouldn't have been in here as a volunteer, but yet Donald Trump mentioned him by name. And then we find out all these connections. They used to praise Mike Flynn, and then he got arrested and then got pardoned. So there's a strategy there, right? You connect the people, you use them to get information, and then you discard them. And when they get in trouble, you disassociate, right? Cool.
Thousands of others.
As the bearer of another scandal linked to Russia, when news of Papadopoulos' charges broke, he was immediately denounced by the president and his former campaign colleagues.
Of course he was.
He was the coffee boy. He had nothing to do with the campaign. And all of this contact with alleged Russians is something completely beyond the scope of his volunteer duties.
He wasn't the coffee boy, obviously, because then that fell into the narrative, well, if he's the coffee boy, why is he sitting in a meeting with the current attorney general and the current president?
Exactly.
Right in the middle.
Exactly.
George was constantly in touch with the high-level officials. He helped organizing the meeting between Trump and the LCC, the Egyptian president. So, I mean, of course, this is not the task of a coffee boy. He really was approved in anything he did. He was not a freelancer taking initiative on his own.
George Papadopoulos pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. He
What do you know?
surrendered his passport and is waiting for sentencing.
What do you know?
For now, he's bound by his deal with the Mueller investigation to remain silent.
George is the person who was the target, identified by Miss Pseudo to offer those hacked emails. He decided to cooperate with the FBI and is putting his knowledge fully at disposal of the government. So, as I said, it's a piece of a puzzle, but it's an important piece, and his contribution is going to make a difference.
This is the witch hunt of the century, and it's a hoax meant to destroy the president and dozens of people around him. It's sickening, and the people who are doing these things, the media and the members of Congress, really need to be held accountable.
For what? For what? What does the media have to do with this? What does your members of Congress have to do with this? These are the people that you brought into your campaign. These are the people that had these deep Russian contacts. These are the people that either confessed and or were convicted of lying to the FBI about their relationships with Russia. What does the media have to do with this? Covering it? It's a witch hunt. Where do you think that term that he still uses to this day comes from?
You saw your nation convulsed by division caused by the Watergate scandal. How does this compare?
Well, I think what's going on now makes that pale. That was purely a domestic thing. We didn't have the involvement of a foreign adversary, our prime foreign adversary, Russia, in that. And so to me, it's much more worrisome.
So these are dangerous times.
They are.
Okay, I think at some popular request, I think we're going to play part 3. You guys cool with that? Because it's another about 45 minutes, and this basically part 3 is really explosive because it kind of gets us to the point where we sort of are now. So if you guys are okay with that, we're going to do that. I just want to level set in a couple of things first, because some of the names that were mentioned in there, I want to talk specifically about George Papadopoulos, because this is during the investigation, the Mueller investigation. Okay, so let's just talk about George Papadopoulos, since his name was mentioned quite a bit, and we'll also talk about Carter Page. George Papadopoulos. I did a summary on him here. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on one sec. We are going to play part 3. All right. Born August 19th, 1987 in Chicago to Greek immigrant parents, initially served as an unpaid intern at the Hudson Institute from 2011 to 2015, specializing in Eastern Mediterranean policy. He also authored op-eds on energy and geopolitical strategy, briefly advised Ben Carson's 2016 presidential campaign on foreign policy before transitioning to Donald Trump's campaign in March of 2016 as an unpaid foreign policy advisor, often dismissed by colleagues as a coffee boy. We just heard someone say, no, he wasn't a coffee boy. You put him on your foreign policy. You put him on as a foreign policy advisor. Okay, between March and September 2016, Papadopoulos repeatedly attempted to facilitate meetings between Trump's campaign and Russian officials, including a potential meeting with President Putin, requests supported at times by Trump and Sessions, according to later court filings, as we just heard. In May 2016, Papadopoulos met with Maltese professor Joseph Massoud, who claimed Russians had dirt on Hillary Clinton. Papadopoulos then shared this with Alexander Downer, we just heard that, Australia's High Commissioner, who relayed the information to the FBI. That disclosure was a key factor prompting FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation into Trump-Russian links. Papadopoulos was interviewed in January 2017, was interviewed by the FBI, later arrested in July upon landing in D.C. October 5th, 2017, pled guilty to making false statements to the FBI regarding his Russian contacts. As part of a plea deal, he cooperated with Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, served 12 days in prison. Donald Trump pardoned him in December of 2020. Okay. So let's get into part 3, because I think part 3, well, you guys will appreciate it. It just wraps the whole thing up. Let me see if I can do this here. All right, where is it? Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. I think this is fascinating. I hope you guys find it fascinating as well, because I think it tells a lot. It paints a big picture, right? It really, really does. Do I have part 3? Yes, I do, right here. I bookmarked it, and then my bookmark vanished. Okay, so this is part 3. This is, again, this sort of speaks to how the money, the espionage, and how it led to the creation of what we currently have in the White House.
Hello and welcome to Four Corners. Tonight we take you to Moscow for the third part of our series on President Trump and his ties to Russia. Over the past 2 weeks, we've looked at how Donald Trump's business history made him vulnerable to Russian influence.
Shocker.
How Russia targeted members of Trump's election campaign staff.
Shocker.
In this episode, we look at Vladimir Putin's endgame and the covert operation designed to wreak havoc on the US political system. You'll meet the Russian woman at the center of the infamous Trump Tower meeting involving the president's closest confidants, including his own son. That meeting is key to the allegation of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. Some of the world's most senior intelligence officials at the time of Putin's assault on America spoke to Four Corners for this program, warning of a brazen threat to Western democracy. Russia is a mystery, wrapped in a riddle, inside an enigma. Churchill's words, written in the time of Stalin, still resonate today in modern Russia, where the great dictator's true successor has strengthened his hold on the Kremlin. Vladimir Putin's meticulously stage-managed inauguration last month, the culmination of an equally stage-managed election victory.
Remember, this is from June of 2018, okay?
It was his virtual coronation as president for life.
He used to be president. Now he's chief of the nation. He's the supreme leader. He's chief of the tribe because of the West, because we feel threatened. And at the time of being threatened, we gather around the leader and we don't ask questions.
Wow. Big statement there.
He really believes he is Messiah. He really believes that he is given to Russia by law. And he really believes that the longer he stays in power, the better it is for the country.
Does that sound familiar? He sold the people on, I am the savior of your country. Listen to what I say. I've got you. I've got your back. Similar to other dictators throughout history. Mustache Man. Him.
Messiah or supreme leader, Vladimir Putin embraces Russia's deep religious traditions, gives thanks, as here at Easter, to the God whose worship his one-time communist comrades outlawed.
Христос воскресе! Христос воскресе! Христос воскресе! Христос воскресе!
There's a strong sense in which those bells are tolling for Vladimir Putin. By immersing himself in Russian tradition, he's made himself a modern Tsar. He embodies nostalgia for Russia's past greatness and the more recent power of the Soviet Empire. But the dark side of that nostalgia is a potent sense of grievance, a grievance that the world has undermined or taken away Russia's rightful place in the world. Putin believes the West has conspired against his Russia. It's one of the reasons he feels justified in conspiring against them.
The more inflated his image of himself becomes, the bigger the enemy needs to be. Like, who is he protecting?
This is Masha Gessen. She's a world-renowned and well-known, probably the preeminent Putin biographer.
Russia from? Well, it can only be the United States. As far as Putin is concerned, and as far as most Russians are concerned, Russia has been at war with the United States, not a Cold War, but a hot war, in Ukraine since 2014.
Putin's sense of grievance was inflamed when the US imposed economic sanctions in retaliation for Russia's military assault on Ukraine and annexation of Crimea.
Russia's decision to send troops into Crimea has rightly drawn global condemnation. I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government.
The most comprehensive set of sanctions against the Russian government ever in hundreds of years of history between the United States and Russia. The Russian government and the
But tell us again that Obama did nothing. Okay, cool.
Russian business community was shocked. Never before in history has the chief of staff of the president of Russia been on a sanctions list. That is something remarkable and new.
As much as Obama's actions hurt Russia, Vladimir Putin remained intractable.
Are there any circumstances when you would give away Crimea and Sevastopol? Putin says, you must be out of your mind. Such circumstances don't exist at all. No way.
In 2016, as the presidential race in the United States narrowed to 2 candidates, the Russians were watching closely.
Well.
They're astute students of the United States. They have expertise on us, and they understand our country very well. They maintain a very large and sophisticated spying apparatus within the United States. They watch our television, they read our publications, they read our newspapers.
The people of Crimea, from what I've heard, would rather be with Russia than where they were. And you have to look at that also.
Again, Russian propaganda from the KGB from Putin telling the Western world that this is what the residents of Crimea want, echoed by, at that time, the candidate for president, Donald J. Trump. Seriously. I mean, there you go.
They figured that Trump would be much better to deal with on a whole range of issues, and certainly among which would be sanctions. Or perhaps being more benign or treating the situation in Ukraine more benignly than the prior administration or a Clinton administration would.
What do you know? What do you know? Nothing to see here, though, right, MAGA?
Putin's plot against America was in preparation before the campaign. The plot was multifaceted, involving human agents, social media manipulation, and a devastating cyber attack.
They've always been gathering intelligence and
getting themselves positioned on networks. What has changed is a growing...
This is Robert Hannigan, the director of GCHQ, which is like a super secret part of British intelligence.
Evidence that they want to use those accesses to do destructive things rather than just sit and watch and gather.
During the election campaign, Robert Hannigan was head of Britain's GCHQ, the UK's highly secretive signals intelligence organisation. It's rare for GCHQ to speak publicly, but the cyber assault on the US marked a new worrying trend in Russia's methods.
It reflects a growing sense, clearly in Moscow, that their stake in this is reducing. They don't care anymore, that they have been badly treated by the West in some way, and they no longer worry about being called out. So that is a big change. It's the reflection of a capability in cyber which they invested in very heavily over 10 years ago, people and money, and that's paying off and they're using it.
Russia's biggest cyber coup in the US election was the attack on the servers of the Democratic National Committee and the personal email account of campaign chairman John Podesta.
In the case of the DNC and the John Podesta emails, they clearly thought, here's something that is really valuable if we want to damage the electoral process in general and one side in particular, and they made a political decision to use it. So that is new and a new level of aggression.
It was disseminated primarily through WikiLeaks, and we suspect a cutout from the Russians.
Remember WikiLeaks?
WikiLeaks, and that's how it was exposed.
And do we know the extent to which that was pre-planned, or that there was communication with WikiLeaks prior to the exfiltration taking place?
I can't comment on that.
It's obviously something that was being looked at.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
It's a sign of strange times when Julian Assange, once reviled by Republicans, finds he has real admirers in the Trump camp.
Funny how that worked out.
Do you still think Assange is a hero?
Yes, I really do.
Roger
I think
Stone.
Assange, first of all, I don't buy the idea that he's a Russian asset or that WikiLeaks is a Russian front.
You don't want to buy that, Roger, because you were too, my guy. Just saying.
Reject that.
Roger Stone, a longtime advisor to Donald Trump, is one of the president's fiercest defenders.
They not only surveilled Donald Trump, but they also now, as we broke here on our InfoWars, they infiltrated his campaign.
He claimed.
No, they did not. Donald Trump, brought in people who were groomed and cultivated by the Russian spy network. Thank you. Thank you for, I wanted to clarify that for you, Roger.
During the campaign, to be in contact with Assange and hinted prior knowledge of the hacked emails. Stone is now under investigation by the special prosecutor.
Yep.
Well, politics is full of bluffing and posturing.
And in some case, outright lies.
No, I wouldn't say there are any lies here at all. There is no evidence that supports this idea that I had advance notice of the content.
And yet,
evidence of it.
Now Mr. Mueller has clearly spoken to a number of your associates.
Okay, Roger. I find no evidence of those things, but I do understand that a runaway federal prosecutor, as we say in this country, can indict a ham sandwich.
They hacked the Democratic Party, spilled this stuff out in 2 leaks in 2016 with the express goal of damaging Hillary Clinton and undermining her. So that's the crime. And then the question is, did Donald Trump know about this?
How could he not? He's told us he knows everything.
No. That question is at the heart of Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller's investigation into whether there was collusion between Trump and the Russians during the election campaign. The biggest story pointing to the possibility of collusion broke the following year, 6 months into Trump's troubled presidency.
We begin tonight with Donald Trump Jr. acknowledging he did meet with a Russian.
News of the infamous meeting in Trump Tower at the height of the presidential election campaign created a firestorm which has yet to be extinguished.
The material was part of a Russian government effort to aid his father's candidacy.
When you read the parts about the Russian government or Russia supporting your father,
This is Don Jr. on with Hannity.
did that put off any sirens in your head?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think this was, again, just basic information that was going to be possibly there. I don't even think my sirens, went up or the antennas went up.
What?
At this time because of it, because it wasn't the issue that it's been made out to be over the last, 9 months, 10 months.
Okay.
To understand what happened in the now notorious meeting, you have to go back 3 years to the Miss Universe pageant of 2013, when notions of a Donald Trump presidency were the stuff of fantasy.
You have a special announcement where the Miss Universe pageant will be held.
At that time, Trump was preparing to go to Russia with love.
Pageant will be held at Crocus City Hall in Moscow, Russia. So get ready.
Trump had a friendly Russian oligarch ready to pay for it, and a plan to meet Vladimir Putin.
Trump was obsessed with meeting Putin. He hoped that Putin would come to the Miss Universe pageant. He gets told that Putin will be calling while he's there. And he keeps asking, have we heard from Putin yet? Is Putin coming? Has Putin called?
Ну и президент конкурса, господин Дональд Трамп, вместе с нами сегодня здесь. Welcome. Добрый вечер. Hello.
Very nice. Nice to be with you.
I know that you're going to be on stage. Я говорю, что мистер Дональд Трамп принимает участие в этой церемонии сегодня.
Well, we're really excited, and to be in Moscow and Russia is just a very exciting thing for us. It's going to be an amazing pageant. It's the biggest in the world. It's going to be fantastic.
Trump didn't get to meet Putin during his brief Miss Universe tour to the Russian capital, but he was fated in man, Aras Agalarov.
Trump is there, and also present is Aras Agalarov, the billionaire oligarch, runs a big company in Russia, real estate development company. He was known as done these huge construction projects for the Kremlin.
I know the Agalarovs, not personally, but of course, that was those were people we knew well as a government and as an embassy. The Agalarovs are very.
It was a fateful event for Donald Trump in more ways than one. Partnership with Agalarov, with whom he agreed to pursue a deal to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. And to the oligarch's son, Emin, who convinced him to appear in a music video.
Emin, wake up. Come on. Emin, let's get with it. You're always late. You're just another pretty face. I'm really tired of you. You're fired.
His son, Emin Agalarov, a pop singer, at the time married to the daughter of the president of Azerbaijan, and Emin's publicist, Rob Goldstone, this heavyset Brit who'd been a tabloid reporter in Australia at one point, actually.
The British PR man Rob Goldstone is a kind of court jester to the rich and famous. A self-described useful idiot, one of the colourful characters central to the contentious Trump Tower meeting.
You don't know Andy Pandy? Oh, shall we look? Let's do it.
It's not just the corruption. It's not, I mean, it's not just the corruption. It's the people that were surrounding him, and indirectly or directly. They are just a laundry list of deplorables. and just disgusting people and just criminal elements and all of their backroom negotiations with various entities of criminality. It's just disturbing.
Well, March. Andy Pandy's coming to town. La, 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 la. Way down. La, 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 la.
The Moscow beauty pageant also generated the most salacious allegation in Trump's scandal-plagued presidency.
So look, what we're going to do now is we're going to a great party. You're all invited.
It was contained in the intelligence dossier put together for the Democrats during the US election by former MI6 agent Christopher Steele.
One of the allegations that comes up in the campaign in 2016 from the notorious Steele dossier is that Trump had prostitutes in his hotel room in Moscow.
F1 in the chat, please.
Urinated on the bed in his hotel suite.
Steele's informant claimed that Russian spies filmed the alleged encounter at the Ritz-Carlton as compromat, compromising material which could be used against the future president.
It had serious implications. And, it is worth noting that sexual compromat was something very much in the FSB's playbook. There's never been any confirmation for this allegation, even though it was the most sensational and widely publicized allegation in the Steele dossier.
And Trump has pushed back very hard.
And Trump has said it's fake, it's nonsense.
Knowing Donald Trump for 40 years, knowing his tastes and the fact that he's a extreme germaphobe.
Knowing his tastes or his desire for young girls, Roger? Is that what you're trying to say?
The idea of him being involved in the kinky scene that's described in these documents I find unlikely.
Unlikely. Not impossible.
The uncorroborated allegations of sexual antics in the Ritz-Carlton have colored the reception of Steele's claims of collusion during the campaign. The special prosecutor's investigation has focused more closely on the Trump Tower meeting and how the Russians Trump met in Moscow came to be at his headquarters at the height of the campaign.
Mm-hmm. Remember, we're talking a lot about the collusion. So as we discussed yesterday, collusion is just coordination of a secret variety. There is obvious collusion between information passed by Russian intermediaries connected to the Russian, intelligence services and the Trump campaign. That is textbook collusion. Okay? Textbook collusion. It's not some fantasy. That is what collusion is. Communications of a secret variety between two parties. Donald Trump Jr. taking that meeting, all of the coordination between other people, contacts with Russia, secretive, behind closed doors, in contact with the Trump campaign. There is no doubt about it that it was a form of collusion. No doubt about it. I am so fucking tired of MAGA and the right-wing circles trying to claim that there was none. The reason they keep saying that there was none is because there was some. That's why.
We went to Moscow to meet the female lead in the Trump Tower drama. Natalia Veselnitskaya is a lawyer whose client list includes Aras Agalarov and another Russian oligarch hit hard by US sanctions. Some claim she's a Russian agent working for the Kremlin.
I'm going to need to do a little translating here. I'll do my best for you.
I wouldn't call her just a lawyer. What I would say is that she's a Russian operative. The way the Russian government operates is they don't people don't have business cards from the secret police.
Sarah.
Hey, friends, hang on 1 second. Can you do me a solid and give our friend Brett Hermstead a little love in the chat? Because Brett says, you mean like Joe getting 81 million votes? Question mark, never. What about Biden? What about Biden? What about Biden? Joe, this is an educational forum. I know you peaked in middle school. I'd suggest you just leave. Thanks.
Вы можете задавать любой вопрос. Абсолютно.
Sarah, you can ask me any question you want.
Are you a spy or an agent for the Russian government?
No, of course not.
No, of course not.
I work only myself.
I work for myself.
Were you working for the Russian government when you went to Trump Tower?
Ну нет, конечно.
Of course not.
Я реально
I represent the interests of a Russian citizen in America. And I struggle against powerful governments and financial structures in the U.S.
Государственно-финансовой структуры в Соединенных Штатах Америки.
When you read about yourself, about Natalia, in particularly the American media, do you recognize yourself in the stories?
No.
No.
Nothing about myself.
Okay. She's wicked dirty.
The meeting at Trump Tower was set in train by British publicist Rob Goldstone. June the 3rd, 2016, Goldstone was contacted by his client, the pop star Emin Agalarov, asking him to set up a meeting with the Trumps. Goldstone immediately contacted Don Jr.
Oh, the plot
Emin
thickens.
was called. The Crown Prosecutor of Russia met with his father Aras this morning and offered to provide the Trump campaign with some official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary and would be very useful to your father. This is obviously very high-level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Don Jr.'s reply expressed no surprise or caution. If it's what you say, I love it.
That, friends, right there is collusion. Thank you.
The source of the material referred to in the email was the General Prosecutor of Russia, not the Crown Prosecutor, as Goldstone called him.
Yuri Chaika is the General Prosecutor of Russia, and he's probably the most important person to Putin as the enforcer of Putin's will. He's a very important part of the whole apparatus of Putin's machine of repression.
Veselnitskaya has close connections to the General Prosecutor and admits giving him the potentially damaging information about donors to Hillary Clinton.
Господину Чайке я лично докладывала за, я сейчас точно не могу сказать, но в общем за много-много месяцев до этой встречи. Более того, я обращалась официально с этой же информацией в...
Hang on a second, let me just go back a little bit and I'll translate for you.
Russia, and he's probably the most important person to Putin as the enforcer of Putin's will. He's a very important part of the whole apparatus of Putin's machine of repression.
Veselnitskaya has close connections to the General Prosecutor and admits giving him the potentially damaging information about donors to Hillary Clinton.
Ooh. I personally reported this to Mr. Chaika. I don't know exactly how many, but many months before this meeting. And I officially approached his office with this information.
С этой же информацией в его офис.
We have some big numbers coming in. Very big numbers. I'm truly honored by your support.
By the time of Goldstone's offer of incriminating information from the Russians, Donald Trump had secured the Republican nomination for president. Behind the scenes, Don Jr. and Goldstone set up the meeting, inviting the Russian lawyer to Trump headquarters in New York to meet Don Jr., campaign chairman Paul Manafort, and Don Jr.'s brother-in-law, Jared Kushner.
More collusion. Thank you. Secret meetings.
I don't know why it rose to that level, other than perhaps the candidate's
Roger Stone
son
again.
thinks this meeting can be productive because his friend in London says this woman is wired.
Did you know that the Agalarovs were promising damaging material on Clinton?
Absolutely not. I just think that's completely impossible. They weren't helping Trump. They were helping me. Okay.
2 days before the meeting, Donald Trump began promising he'd soon reveal fresh dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Think of that timing. Days before this meeting. Days before the meeting that was set up by his son and his son-in-law to get information on Hillary. Days before that meeting, this is what he did.
I am going to give a major speech on probably Monday of next week, and we're going to be discussing all of the things that have taken place with the Clintons. I think you're going to find it very informative and very, very interesting.
Crazy.
Rob Goldstone said that the meeting took place because of the Russian government's support for Donald Trump. Was that your understanding of why you were going?
Нет, конечно.
Of course not.
Меня мог,
I certainly could have been used by one person
только в этом смысле один человек. Тот, который
who
сегодня
now
себя
calls
называет
himself a
полезным
useful
идиотом.
idiot, Rob Goldstone.
Тем, что показать,
show how cool he
какой он
was.
крутой. Он общается,
How he
с
socializes
королевским
with the Crown
прокурором и с
Prosecutor and with Crown
королевским
attorneys.
адвокатом.
Just to be clear, this is during the election campaign. It's a very intense period. To get a meeting in Trump Tower, even with Donald Trump Jr., you must have known that you were expected to deliver something to the Trump campaign.
That's what you think. My story confirms the
Моя
opposite.
история
No, it doesn't.
подтверждает обратное.
That's crazy. Oh
On the
my
day of the
God.
meeting, June 9th, 2016, Veselnitskaya was in the US defending another Russian oligarch facing charges in New York. The reason you were in the United States was to defend your client against money laundering charges.
What?
In New York.
Really? I would say defense against false accusations. Right.
It's that case, she says, that took her to Trump Tower.
Mm-hmm.
The charges arose from allegations that her client had profited from the murder of a Russian lawyer called Magnitsky.
Uh-oh.
Magnitsky, who was beaten to death in a Moscow jail cell, was the whistleblower in a massive fraud that hit Bill Broder's Russia-based investment company.
Sergei Magnitsky.
Do you see how tangled this shit is? And it all centers around the Kremlin. It all centers around Russian oligarchs, billionaires, people within in the political hierarchy, connected by billions and billions and billions of dollars that just so happen to end up in the pocket of the Trump family during the days when they couldn't get money from American banks. Shocker.
He was effectively murdered because he was my lawyer. He would still be alive today if he hadn't worked for me.
Despite making powerful enemies in Russia, Broder devoted himself to campaigning against those connected to his lawyer's death. In 2012, the US Congress responded with the Magnitsky Act, freezing assets and banning visas for those involved.
What we had inadvertently stumbled across was the Achilles heel of the Putin regime. The property they have and the money they have, they don't keep in Russia. They take that and put it into Western banks, Western real estate, and other things.
Really?
And the Magnitsky Act puts all of that at risk.
Распечатки его телефонных переговоров с определенными...
Veselnitskaya is Broder's Russian nemesis. She's been tasked with lobbying to overturn his sanctions and discredit him personally.
Again, the target of the Russian government is to go after people who are uncovering their corruption.
What is the story?
The testimony is the real story of Maginsky and Browder in Russia.
And this is the information that you were trying to share with American politicians, with US politicians?
Of course.
She spent 3 years prior to the Trump Tower meeting and millions of dollars on trying to shut me down.
Do you recall your response when you realized that she was part of that group of people in the Trump Tower meeting?
I wasn't surprised because she was poking at every different place where she could find opportunity. But I was a little bit amazed and frankly impressed that she was able to get to Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort.
Unreal.
Veselnitskaya came to Trump Tower with a Russian lobbyist and an executive from Agalarov's company. She had a memo with her, which included an allegation of tax avoidance by donors to Hillary Clinton. This was far from the explosive information promised in the Goldstone email. But the claim Clinton received dirty money did spark the interest of Don Jr.
Oh, of course it did. He basically asked me one question. Do you have financial records to verify what you say? That this illegal money went into Hillary Clinton's fund. This surprised me quite a lot. How could I have such documents?
After the Russian failed to...
Again, allegations everywhere, which spurred this meeting. We've got all this dirt. And then nothing. No charges. No documents, just rumors and collusion between people who introduced the idea of all this, nefarious evidence, and then nothing. Died on the vine.
Produce documents. You can almost sense the disappointment of the Trump team in her descriptions.
Oh.
Campaign chairman Paul Manafort.
Oh.
Did Paul Manafort ask you any questions?
No.
No.
Nothing. He asked you nothing?
Nothing.
And Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
My impression of Jared Kushner was of a young man who came in for a few minutes and left the room. Sounds about right.
Veselnitskaya rejects the idea that there was any collusion involved in the meeting.
Give me the motive, they said. Give me the motive. Explain why. Why on earth would the Kremlin do that? God. What for? What on earth would they be talking about with Trump? And most importantly, what could Russia have done to help Trump win? Wow. Even Mueller, after a year of his grand investigation, still can't explain to his people what he's doing to get to the bottom of it.
And
he absolutely did. Absolutely did. Proved everything in regards to obstruction of justice. All of it. All of it. All of it. So her lies, again, don't forget who she is. There were rumors, allegations that she was deeply connected to the inner circle in the Russian government. So everything that she said there were just what? Don't look at the corruption. I'm going to come up with some other bullshit narrative. I'm going to call it a witch hunt or whatever it might be. Okay.
What do you think about people accepting a meeting on those terms?
Well, what it reflects is an interest in collusion. Whether anything came of it, I don't. That's yet to be determined. But I do wonder whether that's just one vignette that became public, and were there other such encounters?
Unreal.
Dan Hoffman was the CIA's station chief in Moscow and one of the agency's most respected Russian analysts. He sees Putin's hand behind these events, but not simply to boost Donald Trump's chances, rather to disrupt US democracy.
There it is.
That's my premise behind what was going on in Trump Tower in June of 2016. What I think Vladimir Putin was doing was deliberately leaving a trail of breadcrumbs from Trump Tower to the Kremlin. It makes a lot of sense to me because I see the full spectrum of Russian intelligence operations, all the way from extraordinarily clandestine secret stuff that the media would never be able to find. And frankly, if the media can find something that Russia did, like the meeting at Trump Tower, then it was meant to be found. Eventually we'll get to them, and eventually the media will expose them. And what Vladimir Putin was counting on was a little bit of a media feeding frenzy.
We have breaking news on the Russia case tonight.
President Trump, quote, personally dictated that initial misleading statement from his son, Donald Trump Jr., when first asked about that June 2016 campaign meeting with the Russians.
Mueller investigating a possible cover-up.
And he found it, obstruction of justice.
Neither side got anything out of the meeting, and later attempts to cover it up have led the president into even more dangerous territory, with a special prosecutor looking at whether Trump or his team committed obstruction of justice.
And they did.
Ensuring just the sort of chaos that the Russians may have intended all along.
What I think Vladimir Putin realized is he could inject this virus into our political system and set us fighting against each other, instead of remembering that the enemy is not Google, Facebook, Twitter, Democrats, Republicans. It's the guy in the Kremlin.
Correct.
Please welcome
It's the guy in the fucking Kremlin. Correct.
retired United States Army Lieutenant General and former Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Michael Flynn.
Jesus, this guy.
By the time of the Republican convention in July 2016, the Russian virus had infected the Trump team at the highest levels.
Lock her up.
This is Mike
That's
Flynn.
right.
This is Mike Flynn speaking.
Yes, that's right. Lock her up.
Retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was Director of Defense Intelligence under President Obama. Trump's most senior military backer, he became the most significant casualty of the Russia probe.
The next president of the United States, right here.
Fucking traitor.
A few months before the convention, Flynn was invited by the Russian television network.
Okay, a few months before that moment, when he said lock her up on stage at the RNC, he was invited to a meeting, sat at a round table with Vladimir Putin. Friends, do you know who else was sitting at that round table at that very event that we're going to hear sound from right now? Anybody want to take a guess as to who else was sitting at that round table? Exactly, Jill Stein, the cicada candidate who only shows up once in a while, sitting exactly at the same table that Michael Flynn is sitting at next to Vlad. Jill Stein. For all you Stein voters out there, care to explain? Probably not, huh? Cool.
Russia Today to their 10th anniversary gala. Created by Putin, Russia Today was described by the American intelligence community as a propaganda network.
RT, Russia Today, that same organization that still exists today, pumped tens of millions of dollars into right-wing conservative talk show hosts, Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, etc. To do what, friends? Spread Russian propaganda. Vladimir Putin's scheme that goes back decades worked better than he could have ever hoped. It's crazy.
Why wouldn't we invite Michael Flynn? As any media organization, we invited all kinds of high-rank officials from different countries that we could get. We invited all sorts of people. Mike Flynn came. Good.
What is it about? I understand it's a broad series of invitations, but why Michael Flynn? What is it about him?
Also, your question, why did you invite him?
Yeah, why?
Implies that it was something strange to invite him.
It was strange.
Extraordinary
to
invite him.
It was.
The former director of Defense Intelligence, who was paid $45,000 to speak at the event, was seated next to Putin.
Yep, sure was.
Putin was very surprised when I told him who was at his table. He said, really? All right.
And why do you think he was surprised?
Well, because he is from the special services as well. And apparently, special services people don't do those things too often.
Birds of a feather.
I don't know. I've never been into special services, and I don't know how it works really, but probably he knows better, and he was surprised.
So Putin and I, in fact, agree that it's an interesting
I knew you
invitation.
would say that. Yeah. No, it's interesting that he agreed. It's not interesting that we invited him.
When it was later exposed and had its negative impact on General Flynn.
Just as a reminder, Michael Flynn was the director of national intelligence in the first Trump administration. Okay? That's who that guy was. The Obama administration warned the Trump administration about Michael Flynn and Michael Flynn's activity. Michael Flynn, the fucking traitor, who also sang on the January 6th insurrectionist, riotous, traitorous prison choir. That Michael Flynn. Okay, cool.
His reputation, that only served Vladimir Putin's interests.
Do solemnly swear.
Swearing into the cabinet.
Named Flynn as National Security Advisor in the newly minted Trump administration. One of the most sensitive posts in government.
Foreign and domestic.
He resigned after 17 days for lying about his conversations with Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak during the transition.
What do you know?
In December 2017, he pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI
What do you
about
know?
those conversations in which he discussed President Obama's sanctions on Russia.
Wow, funny.
I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers.
You think it's unfair that the guy confessed, admitted that he lied, and pled guilty to it? Okay, good to know.
That were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked.
I think that whole story was good for Russia, and they did play a part in it.
No shit.
The Russians and Vladimir Putin, I mean, he's a retired. They say in Russian there's no such thing as a former intelligence officer. He's kind of playing chess. He's thinking a few moves ahead, and he doesn't always let his pawns know exactly what his strategy is to tip over our king.
Unreal.
We want America to understand who
Manafort.
the man is,
Paul
not
Manafort
just
now.
Donald Trump, the candidate.
Campaign chairman Paul Manafort ran the Republican convention. For decades, Manafort was a political gun for hire in leadership contests across the globe, most recently in Ukraine. His former lobbying partner, Roger Stone, claims to have recommended Manafort for his role on the campaign.
Knowing of Trump's legendary cheapness, he offered to work for free. Why would he work for free? Because he understood that he could earn future economic opportunity. Cashing in, leveraging, those seem to be somewhat negative words, but it's a legitimate reason for wanting to win.
So deep, man, oh man.
At the same time, Manafort's name was surfacing in the memos that make up the Steele dossier.
Oh, what do you know?
Christopher Steele's sources, providing raw, untested allegations, named Manafort as a central figure colluding with Russia.
Again.
Manafort is one of the figures who was allegedly an intermediary between the Trump campaign and the Russians. Not implausible, given the work that Manafort had been doing for years for the pro-Russian political party in Ukraine and its leader, Mr. Yanukovych.
Manafort's moment in the sun was brief. His business dealings before he joined the campaign with Russian and Ukrainian oligarchs forced him to resign. Manafort is now in jail awaiting trial, indicted by the special prosecutor on 25 fraud and money laundering. He pleaded not guilty.
This is the same man who trousered $75 million from Ukraine, according to Robert Mueller's indictment. $75 million. Was he really going to work for free? And if he wasn't working for free, who was actually paying him?
Washington is not only James Clapper's neighborhood, it's in his blood. He served in the US intelligence community for 50 years, rising to the highest levels. It took the extraordinary circumstances of Russia's interference and an indifferent president to turn him into a public figure.
When I realized the magnitude of what the Russians had been doing, I did become alarmed about it, given the president's attitude about Russia and his willingness to believe the assurances of Putin, who says he didn't meddle, over his own intelligence community. I thought was quite alarming.
In January 2017, James Clapper and his fellow intelligence chiefs briefed the president-elect on Russia's intervention in the election and the contents of the Steele dossier, including the scurrilous allegations about Trump's visit to Russia. A few days later, Trump turned on them with a vengeance.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake.
It wasn't false. It wasn't fake.
I think it's a disgrace. And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace.
I've never witnessed an assault on the intelligence community like that. Well, actually, my career progression with President Trump is I went from being a Nazi to a choker to a political hack on Veterans Day, no less, and more recently a liar and leaker.
They were plotting against my election.
Throw out all the people that have been involved in the phony Trump investigation.
The real FBI, not the scum on top.
I have this witch hunt constantly going on for over 12 months now.
As the president has come under increasing pressure in the second year of the Mueller investigation, Trump and his backers have become more hostile. Revelations the FBI had used an intelligence informant to approach members of Trump's campaign staff led to claims the agency spied on the campaign.
We now call it Spygate.
That's where this whole thing about the Obama campaign spying, that's where this whole thing came from. He fucking imagined it because he's delusional. Couldn't accept the fact that absolutely Russia influenced the 2016 election to help him get elected. Couldn't handle it, which is why James Clapper, one of the people that Tulsi Gabbard is targeting. This entire thing that he's telling you, MAGA, he made up in his fucking head to try to cover his own corruption, and you fake patriots don't give a shit.
You're calling it Spygate. A lot of bad things have happened. If you look at Clapper, he sort of admitted that they had spies in the campaign.
No, he didn't. Jesus.
A battle is now being waged in the United States not only between political opponents, but against the very institutions that were built to protect America.
The president advocated and was elected on policies that deeply threaten a two-party duopoly, kind of a permanent government. Dwight Eisenhower called it the military-industrial complex. Today it's called the deep state.
No, it's not.
That deep state, according to President Trump and his backers, includes the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the wider US intelligence community.
Got it.
It's a battle that James Clapper says ignores the real enemy.
Russia is the existential threat to the United States. They are a foe of ours, and I think right now the indifference to that imperils the country.
The Kremlin's puppet master now has America dancing to his discordant tune.
There you go.
He couldn't have planned it better.
Well, there you go, friends. There you go. And it's funny, I'm just watching some of the comments scrolling by, right? I'm just watching some of the comments scrolling by. Oh, hey, in all caps, hey, host, are you going to talk about how Tulsi Gabbard just released the mother load? I just, while I'm focused on this, okay, I want to remind people again what James Clapper said in regards to what James Clapper said specifically as it relates in regard to the assault that President Trump has levied against the American intelligence services. This goes back to the infamous meeting back in Helsinki, Finland in 2018. All right around this particular time when this information was just starting to become available, okay?
One of the most extraordinary moments between an American president and a Russian leader. Their meeting framed by Friday's Justice Department indictment of 12 Russian agents for election meddling and the judgment of U.S. intelligence agencies, including Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats, that Russia interfered. President Trump asked, "Who do you believe, President Putin or the U.S. intelligence community?" His answer?
People came to me, Dan Coats came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be.
And the president complimenting an offer from Putin. Instead of turning over the indicted Russian agents, Russian officials would question the agents themselves, with special counsel Bob Mueller present.
I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. And what he did is an incredible offer. He offered to have the people working on the case come and work with their investigators with respect to the 12 people. I think that's an incredible offer.
Tonight, the president's own intelligence chief, Dan Coats, shot back with a rare rebuke. "We have been clear in our assessment of Russian meddling in the 2016 election, and we will continue to provide unvarnished and objective intelligence in support of our national security." Critics like former Obama CIA Director John Brennan unleashing.
It's something that is a disgrace, and that all Americans should be ashamed of that performance of somebody who holds the title of President of the United States.
Election meddling among the flashpoints that have helped sink U.S.-Russia relations. Others include Russia's illegal occupation of Crimea and its backing of a...
Just watch the comments, friends. Just watch how brainwashed so many still are. Just watch the comments.
Syrian regime that used chemical weapons. But this morning, President Trump blaming tensions on the U.S. and the Mueller investigation. Tweeting, "Our relationship with Russia has never been worse thanks to many years of U.S. foolishness and stupidity. And now, the rigged witch hunt." Today asked, does he think Putin bears any responsibility?
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible. I think that the United States has been foolish. I think that the probe is a disaster for our country.
American president, when asked, "Do you blame Russia?" "Yeah, I do. But let me tell you how bad the U.S. has been."
I think it's...
As Putin sits there and just fucking laughs.
Kept us apart. It's kept us separated. There was no collusion at all.
There was. Lots of it.
Everybody knows it. People are being brought out to the fore. So far that I know, virtually none of it related to the campaign. And they're going to have to try really hard to find somebody that did relate to the campaign. That was a clean campaign. I beat Hillary Clinton easily.
Okay.
And frankly, we beat her.
Putin revealing for the first time who he wanted to win.
Wait for
President Putin, did you want President Trump to win the election?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because he talked about bringing the Russian relationship back to normal, Putin said.
Was there anything behind it, or was he just being honest at that moment?
I think he was being honest, and I think he wants to cooperate with Trump. I think Trump is somebody that he thinks will do a lot of good for Russia. Whether this relationship will do a lot of good for America is a different question.
Those 4 hours inside Helsinki's presidential palace, a sharp 180 from President Trump's tense showdown last week with many NATO allies.
I think we will end up having an extraordinary relationship. I hope so. I've been saying, and I'm sure you've heard over the years, and as I campaigned, that getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
But Putin tonight dismissing suspicions that Russia has compromising information on the president.
Does the Russian government have any compromising material on President Trump or his family?
Compromise.
I did hear this rumor, he said. It is hard to imagine nonsense on a bigger scale than this.
And I have to say, if they had it, it would have been out long ago.
We only have their accounts of what happened because President Trump and Putin spoke for more than 2 hours behind closed doors with just translators in the room.
So, I'm just curious now. First of all, I appreciate you guys hanging in for the past couple of days to do this. I just think it's extremely important, especially what we're seeing now, right? Can anybody, I'm not going to ask Thomas, but I'm going to ask anybody with half a brain, even the fact that you've almost, you can feel the heat from the stove, right? The heat from the bonfire should be pause enough to say, how come we hear this every single day about Russian interference? We've identified the financial crimes. We've identified the origins of the Steele dossier. Now, once again, the right wants to use that as weapons against their weapons to support the claims of Obama and Clinton and everyone else violating Trump's privacy. No. Like I said before, we could certainly be objective and criticize the fact that the FISA warrant was issued using the Steele dossier without corroborating all the information on there. But what did we learn from it? It led directly to convictions, testimony, confessions. The people that were identified in that last segment, okay? Let's Roger Stone first. Roger Stone Stone became a central figure in Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. He was arrested in January 2019 and indicted on charges including obstructing an official proceeding, lying to Congress, and witness tampering. President Trump commuted his sentence and then issued a full pardon in July of 2020. Cool. Paul Manafort. Mueller was indicted on financial and FARA-related crimes tied to his Ukraine work, convicted in Virginia, and then pled guilty in D.C. 7.5 years. Full pardon from the president. Mike Flynn. Where's Mike Flynn? This is a good one. Do I have Mike Flynn? I think I've got him on here too. I went through the list of people that are connected to this guy. Paul Manafort. There's Roger. Papadopoulos. I gave you Papadopoulos. Mike Flynn, pardoned, and then brought back into the MAGA circles. So is all that fake news, Thomas? Is all that fake news? People confessing to their crimes and then the dots being connected? Now, again, I'm going to say this is my only opinion. Let me just pull this up real quick. Everything that you've heard for the past 2 days of these secret covert meetings, people talking to other people, emails being transferred back and forth, promises of documents, the definition of collusion is secret or illegal cooperation or conspiracy, especially in order to cheat or deceive others. You tell me what you just heard. Form your own opinions. Critically think through this. Do you think it was collusion? I absolutely fucking do. You know what? The Mueller investigation sought to find out if there was obstruction of justice, and they proved it. And they, in fact, even in the summary, I'll read you the summary now, since we went through it yesterday. This was the conclusion made by the Mueller report. The Mueller report states that if the special counsel's office felt that they could clear the president of wrongdoing, they would have said so. Instead, the report explicitly states that it does not exonerate the president and explains that the Office of Special Counsel accepted the Department of Justice policy that a sitting president cannot be indicted. The Mueller report details multiple episodes in which there is evidence the president obstructed justice. The pattern of conduct and the manner in which the president sought to impede investigations, including through one-on-one meetings with senior officials, is damning to the president. Again, draw your own conclusions. Actually, don't. Follow the evidence. There was collusion between members of the Trump campaign and Russia. There was obstruction of justice. Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, George Papadopoulos, Rick Gates, Michael Flynn, all these people either tried and convicted or confessed. And is all that fake news? Is all that a witch hunt? Is all that just made up by the media? I implore you, do not let Tulsi Gabbard and the bullshit coming now from that investigation that they're claiming is going to blow the cover off all this thing, change the narrative, because that's exactly what they are trying to do. They do not want this part of history told. They are trying to remind people, or trying to convince people, that all of this is just fake and that they're the ones that have the information. Where are the charges? Have you read Tulsi Gabbard's report, friends? I have. There's not a fucking thing in there connected to criminality other than their own. It's fucking wild. It's wild to me. Everybody, please continue to like and share the live. I appreciate y'all very, very much. 122 away from our live goal. You can support the channel through crowdfunding, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Thank you very much. Sustaining, how are you today?
No. Oh, I'm fine. Steve, thank you so much. I love your program. I watch it every morning, but I did not mean to come up here.
It's not a problem, friend. I appreciate you very much for being here. Thanks a lot for being here. Gotcha. And then we have Lana as well. Hi, Lana.
Hi.
What's on your mind?
Who is this? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm driving right now. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's no problem. Thank you very much. It's a problem. Who is this? The reason that all of what we just went through for the past 2 days is so important is because we're seeing it again. Think about what Mr. Trump said just 2 days ago, right? Here you go. Just 2 days ago.
Vladimir Putin said something, one of the most interesting things. He said, your election was rigged because you have mail-in voting. He said mail-in voting every election. He said no country has mail-in voting. It's impossible to have mail-in voting and have honest elections. And he said that to me. It was very interesting because we talked about 2020. He said, you won that election by so much. And that's how he got it. He said, and if you would have won, we wouldn't have had a war. You'd have all these millions of people alive now instead of dead.
Wow. And
he said, and you lost it because of mail-in voting. It was a rigged election, but mail-in voting.
Switzerland, Germany, Canada, the UK, Australia, Austria, Italy, Sweden, India, Hungary, Mexico, Singapore, Spain, Norway, Greece, the US, and even Russia in some form have mail-in voting. That then leads to 48 hours later, he come out with an executive order wanting to do away with mail-in voting, which you can't do. The puppet master. Okay? I've got some sound that came out just yesterday. This is pretty wild. This is the Russian president, okay? I just want you to listen to what he said, and then I'm going to debunk the Russian president in real time, which is going to be great. Russia, if you're listening.
It started with us being deceived, flat out tricked. As people say in Russia, we got played. We were promised that NATO wouldn't expand eastward, not 1 inch. The whole world knows this. But then came one wave of NATO expansion after another. We kept repeating the same thing, that the security of one country or group of countries cannot be ensured at the expense of another. This is written clearly in international agreements signed by everyone. But in practice, one NATO expansion after another. And they kept telling us, nope, you shouldn't be worried. This isn't a threat to you.
Nope.
And when we responded, we do see it as a threat, what did we hear back? Nothing. They just brushed us off. They didn't care what we thought. Didn't want to hear it at all. But we know better than anyone what threatens us and what doesn't. It is our sovereign right to determine our own security and assess threats that come near our borders from any direction. But no one listened, and they just kept moving forward. Is that not aggressive behavior? That's exactly what it is. Aggression that the West refuses to acknowledge.
Interesting, right? Vladimir Putin sitting there and telling the world that it's justified for him to invade Ukraine. Where do we hear that information? We hear it from MAGA simps every day. Yes, Anthony, if you're listening, buddy, got that. We hear it from MAGA simps. We hear it from the administration. We hear it from everybody connected to Trump politics, that it's Ukraine's fault Russian expansion. Okay, let's actually go to the tape, shall we, Jim? So I did a little bit of research for you on Russian NATO expansion and Russian propaganda. NATO's open door, Article 10, lets sovereign countries apply. Allies decide by consensus. Membership grew from 12 to 32 across 10 rounds. Most recently, Finland in April of 2023 and Sweden of March of last year. Driven by applicant states, not NATO recruiting. The broader European Security Order, or the Helsinki Final Act, Charter of Paris and Istanbul in 1995, affirms that every state's rights to choose its alliances. That principle undercuts Moscow's claim that neighbors require Russian consent to join NATO. What Moscow says versus what the documents say. Narrative 1, the West promised not to inch eastward. Declassified notes show an informal 1990 discussion tied to German unification, where U.S. officials floated ideas about NATO's jurisdiction. No binding pledge was made on future enlargement beyond Germany, and nothing was written into a treaty. Russia wants to convince people that, oh, there was an agreement. There was Russian, you couldn't expand eastward. A fucking lie. Narrative number 2, NATO expansion violated deals with Russia. The 1997 NATO-Russia Founding Act did not ban enlargement. The NATO-Russia Founding Act, an agreement that Russia signed, did not ban enlargement. NATO said it had no intention of permanently stationing substantial combat forces in new members at that time and would rely on infrastructure and rotation, language that was political, not a legal prohibition. Narrative number 3, NATO expansion provoked Russia's wars. Kremlin outlets pushed this line to shift blame from Moscow's choices. Fact-checking hubs catalog it as a recurring disinformation trope that we just heard the Russian president utter, literally, especially after Finland and Sweden joined. Why countries joined anyway? States applied to NATO to lock in deterrence and democratic reforms, and especially after Russia's 2014 seizure of Crimea and their 2022 full-scale invasion of Ukraine, to reduce vulnerability to Russia coercion. Finland and Sweden's accessions illustrate this security-seeking logic. Putin's 2007 Munich speech laid out the grievance narrative. Unipolar world, NATO encroachment, that Russia media still amplifies, that's gotten picked up by right-wing outlets saying the exact same thing. That Russia was justified because of NATO expansion. Russia was justified because of NATO expansion. You hear it reiterated everywhere, including on the floor of the House of Representatives by Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. Again, NATO promised not to expand. There was no promise of a treaty. Any nation can apply. NATO broke the founding act by basing troops in the East. The act does not forbid enlargement. Each country is independent to operate their own way, and expansion caused the war in Ukraine, an absolute core propaganda line. So sorry, Vlad. I just dunked on your fucking ass because you're attempting to do the exact same thing. And what do we hear from this guy? What do we hear from this guy? We hear more of the same. We just went through, thank you, brother. Love you, man. We just went through the financial crimes, the money laundering, the spyware. We went through all of it. And now that leads us to where we are today. The embarrassing moment of an American president standing on a red carpet and on U.S. soil applauding as the career thug, unaliver of his own citizens, the disappearer of journalists, the suppressor of speech, walks onto the red carpet where he's greeted with open arms, a little hand stroke, and MAGA wants to believe that Donald Trump is the alpha. He's been getting played for decades. People have gone to jail. People have lost their lives connected to this. And what do we get from MAGA? Fake news. Witch hunt. Trying to blame every not qualified to be in intelligence. Those people had contacts within the Russian government. Those people admitted that they could influence, they could get dirt on Hillary Clinton. Where are the charges, by the way? Where are the charges? So now Tulsi Gabbard comes out with what? With what? There's no allegations. There's nothing in there. Most of the information that's in this was already corroborated by the Senate Intelligence Committee, the Mueller report, even the own confession of Marco Rubio. Russia absolutely engaged in interference. We have it. It's documented. No denying it. The only people that are denying it, this guy. You heard it. He said it publicly. This guy right here. Him. This guy getting played by this guy because of this. And because of his ego. And MAGA and our country is divided. It shouldn't be divided right left. It should be divided. We should all be unified against this piece of shit. This fucking traitor. Hey, Mark, because you're a pathetic traitor doesn't mean the rest of us are. Just want to let you know that, Mark. We're not crying. We're disgusted by you simps supporting a fucking traitor. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's okay. We care more about your future than you do, Mark. We care more about your kids than you do, Mark. We care more about our country than you do, Mark, because we don't want traitors in the White House. Now, you probably tuned in. You probably heard everything that we played today. All of it. You probably heard all of the connections, the money. Why then? Why, Mark, here's a question for you. Why did Donald Trump get over 50% of his money from the Russians when the American banks wouldn't loan him money? Why is that, Mark? Just answer that question. You can't answer that question, though, can you, Mark? Because you're not smart enough to figure it out. Two things. You're either so indoctrinated with the Kool-Aid that you don't fucking care, or you're not smart enough to look past it. It's not my problem, Mark. It's yours. It's yours. Okay. Let me just see what else I have that I wanted to play for you guys this morning. It's important to note that Russia influence in our elections is what got Donald Trump elected. Okay? It's important to note that his followers will not ever accept that. It's important to note that we have what we have now. Things like, Joseph Goebbels, Stephen Miller in charge of public policy. Like this, for example.
The sigh of relief that I have seen from the local communities in this city. You see people going online saying, for the first time that I can remember, I don't hear gunshots ringing out at night anymore. I just saw a video posted by a gentleman who walked from his neighborhood in the southeast all the way to the White House, and he said in the whole way through, he saw no gang members, no violence, no homeless camps, no public drug use. He said it was like living in a different city.
Okay, that's cool. That's good for you. And this is Fox News. What used to be a safe space, commenting on Donald Trump's just lies, or the fact that just Putin lies to him over and over again.
Keep deals. He lied to President.
Just lie
over and over again. During Trump's first administration on multiple treaties, the Open Skies Treaty, the INF Treaty. And then Putin was the one lying to President Trump at the time. He has not changed. He will say whatever he thinks is necessary to outmaneuver the United States. And as you pointed out, Mark, one of his closest partners was the Iranians. So President Trump taking away the Iranian nuclear program and significantly degrading the Iranian military with the help with the Israelis degrades Russia's influence in the Middle East. But it has its hands in the Middle East. Of course, it's collaborating with the Chinese as well. And so this isn't going to stop with Ukraine. Ukraine is just the most acute issue. But really, Russia is after undermining and weakening President Trump in the United States of America.
Thank you, Johnny. Johnny said, in a world of Marks, be a Steve. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate that. here you go. We've got people that Rebecca Heinrich is her name. She goes on Fox, Mark Levin shows, and said this has been the game all along. Putin lies about everything. He's lied about this. He's lied about that. He's lied about these people. He's lied about those people. Hey, dog, what do you have? Come here. And there goes one shoe. Anyway, what more do you need to see? Seriously, what more do you need to see? Where else can you? I should say, what additional information would you need to see to confirm what we've all known all along? That he pays deference to this guy every single chance he gets. There is no more shoe left. Sam. Hey, dog. Come here. Come here. Come here. That's toast. Anyway, we have no proof. We do have proof, Mark. We just played you the proof. You don't want to see the proof, Mark. You don't want to see the proof. So here's some proof for you. Here's some proof for you, Mark. I just literally gave you the NATO doctrine. Vladimir Putin wants to claim that he's justified in his invasion of Ukraine because of NATO expansion. The proof is that that does not exist. He props it up. I have proof. Donald Trump paid deference to Vladimir Putin and said, I believe his intelligence assessment over our own. That's the proof. Donald Trump took the word of Vladimir Putin and said the reason you lost the 2020 election was because of mail-in voting. There's the proof, Mark. Where the fuck have you been? Where the fuck have you been, Mark? Okay, Mark. The words that I just played for you regarding Donald Trump taking Vladimir Putin's word over the U.S. intelligence services? You're so brainwashed, Mark. Okay. Unreal. Let's see what else I have for you guys. Oh, here's a good one. So this is probably fake too, right, Mark? So in the process of... Okay. Yeah, you can show that. In the process of negotiating with the European leaders yesterday, or 2 days ago, Ursula, I can't pronounce her last name, the chairperson or the president of the EU was talking about how our priority has to be reunifying the children that Russia illegally took out of Ukraine and sent to Russia, which is why he's a war criminal, Mark. That your president stroking the hand of a war criminal that if he wasn't in the United States or North Korea would have been arrested on the spot and tried and likely convicted for his war crimes. But that's okay, Mark. So let's listen to this beautiful statement that he made. This is so awesome.
Every single child has to go back to its family. This should be one of our main priorities also in these negotiations, to make sure that the children come back to Ukraine to their families.
Thank you. And
cool. That's cool. So yeah, sure. So, von der Leyen, thank you, Anacronista. Yeah, obviously it should be a layup question, Mr. Trump, right? Should be a total layup question. You've got to prioritize getting the children back that were taken illegally from Ukraine. That should be easy, right?
we did. I was just thinking we're here for a different reason, but we just a couple of weeks ago made the largest trade deal in history. So that's a big thing, and congratulations. That's great. Thank you very much, Ursula. Mr. Chair.
What? What? Hey, Mark, was that made up too? When asked a question about reunifying children that were stolen illegally, and then your boy, you know, the humanitarian in chief? Just to flex to trade deals that he didn't even make? Okay. Just to make sure I heard that okay. And then I'm going to remind you of this piece of news, Mark. This is Michael Wolff, who's the preeminent author on Donald Trump's probably spent more time with him than just about anybody. Because don't forget, Mark, Donald Trump is on the Schmepstein files. Here you go.
Epstein told me that he had gone on a secret trip to Moscow to meet Putin.
Oh.
So here's the question. What did Jeffrey Epstein tell Vladimir Putin about Donald Trump?
Yeah, really. What about that, Mark? What about that, Mark? Or are you just going to say, well, Clinton, we don't. Here's the thing, Mark. We don't care. So Mark is the new Justin. Every time I'm referencing MAGA, I'm going to use Mark. So you've got that honor now. So Mark, explain to me why it is that Jeffrey Schmepstein, sorry, Jess, caught myself there, went to Moscow to meet with Putin. Tell me why. Tell me why it is that Donald Trump promised to release information from the Schmepstein files and it's not out there now. Why is that, Mark? Is that just made up too? Because you guys were all gung-ho. See, the difference between us and you, Mark, is we don't give a fuck who's connected to this. We want everybody. Thanks, Jess. We want everybody connected to crimes against children. Why are there allegations, 27 allegations against this guy, including allegations from young girls who were assaulted by him? Pseudonym Katie Johnson, Jane Doe, 13 and 12. Why are there no allegations against everybody else? See, we don't give a fuck, Mark. We don't care. We want everybody that's connected to this. Everybody, all of them. You don't. You only want Democrats. You're probably the same patriot that believes that what they're doing in Texas by illegally detaining people because they won't sign a slip of paper, you're probably fine with that too. Mark, you're probably the one that's super angry that California is gerrymandering their districts, even though they're allowing the voters to decide. You're probably so fucking angry about that. You know what I'm going to do, Mark? This is just for you, my guy. There you go. That's just for you. Cut. Ripped. Devilishly handsome. And then there's this. We don't give a fuck, Mark. We don't care. We can stand on our own integrity. We can stand on the actual people who believe in supporting protection for children, right? You don't give a fuck, Mark. You don't fucking care about anything other than your fucking cult. You don't care about anything other than your spot on the cult ladder, thinking that you're actually going to get picked. You probably had to cry your way to be chosen for JV kickball. How pitiful. What a sorry existence. Again, the collective, Mark. Why is it that you people just cannot accept? I'm not asking you to accept Democratic policies. I'm not asking you to change your vote. What I am asking you for is just be willing to admit that you've been lied to. Why can't you do that? Why can't you do that? Why can't you just take a second just to admit that you've been lied to? Because you don't care. Again, the lie that Vladimir Putin just told in an attempt to, I did go full Canadian. I might have. The lie that was just told by Vladimir Putin, we just debunked because the bylaws, again, the Russia, what is the agreement? The NATO-Russia Founding Act. Thank you. The Russia signed themselves that acknowledge that any country can join NATO. Did not ban enlargement. NATO said that it had no intention of permanently stationing substantial combat forces. Every country can decide their own. So justify it. Come up with an excuse now. Fucking people. It just drives me crazy. Do I have everything that I want to play for you guys? Yeah, I think I do. Oh yeah, this is cool. This is great. I love this quote. I found this today. You guys will love this. This is from Jack White. Now, I'm not saying we should take our political advice from Jack White from the White Stripes, but I think Jack White's an amazing guitar player. By the way, if it might get loud if you've not seen that documentary. It's with Jack White, Jimmy Page, and The Edge from U2. And as a guitar lover and a guitar player, I was just like, this is great. Just watching these guys talk about their guitar styling. So I love Jack White. This is what he said. Look at how disgusting Trump has transformed the historic White House. It's now a vulgar, gold-leafed, and gaudy professional wrestler's dressing room. Can't wait for the UFC match on the front lawn, too. He's almost fully achieved the movie Idiocracy. Look at his disgusting taste. Would you even buy a used car from this con man, let alone give him the nuclear codes? A gold-plated Trump Bible would look perfect up on the mantle with a pair of Trump shoes on either side, wouldn't it? What an embarrassment to American history. That's fucking brutal. And I love it. Love it. I love it. Love it. Hello, Desi. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. It's been a long time I've been on your show, but I'm glad I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. What's on your mind?
I have a question. Based on this this lawn of the White House, because the way he has decorated, do you think I saw something online and people were saying how they just feel like he's just doing this because he's not going to live there. Just imagine decorating the White House to gold everywhere and he lives in the next 4 years. What do you think?
I don't think I understood your question. Can you what's the question that
the way he's decorating the White House with gold plated, stuff like that. I don't think it's something he sees that as something long term is going to be there for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's gonna.
So he knows he's gonna be.
I don't think he's gonna. Well, I don't think he's going to make it to the end of the presidency, quite frankly. He's not a healthy person, that's for sure. So yeah, I mean, again, every administration has the right and the ability to decorate however they see fit. I think it tracks. I mean, Donald Trump is tacky. He is tacky and then some. So he decorated. I mean, the decorations in the Oval Office mirror his personality, in my opinion.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for everything you do. I just want to. Just popping in. Thank you.
I appreciate saying that, Desi. Thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate you. All right. I think we will end there. I don't think I have anything else that I wanted to. Oh, one more story. I'll read this. This came in their mod chat. I want to give a shout out to my amazing mod team. I talk about them in glowing terms. I'm going to say it again because I always kind of run things by them just to make sure that when I'm not getting kicked in the shins, figuratively, Jess. But I asked for that. I always run things by them just to make sure that is this something we can do? Am I going down the right path here? And I always expect their honest feedback, and they always give it to me. And I'm grateful for that. So, and they're always kind of throwing information my way, saying, "What about this? Should we talk about this?" And I'll be like, "Should we talk about it this way?" And they're like, "No, we should talk about it this way." I'm so grateful for what they do. It just is a shout out to all mods. Any live creator that does this anywhere and on any platform needs a mod team, and I am so grateful because I got the best damn mods in the business, and it's not even close. So they shared this story with me about a Trump administration speechwriter linked to hate speech online. Wow, who knew? Eric Lendrum, a DHS security of DHS, likened U.S. conservatives to Jews in Nazi Germany. A speechwriter for the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security has come under scrutiny after he was linked to hate speech online. Eric Lendrum compared the circumstances of American conservatives to that of enslaved people and Jewish people in Nazi Germany. And in his podcast claimed that the racist Great Replacement conspiracy theory was real. Notice reported that Lendrum began working at DHS, which is headed by Kristi Noem, in March this year after previously working at the Department of the Interior during the first Trump administration. DHS has been at the forefront of Donald Trump's crackdown on undocumented immigration during his second presidency. In the gap between his government roles, Lendrum was a frequent online presence hosting a podcast, posting on X and on Telegram, and writing a blog on the website American Greatness. In one post from December of 2021, Lendrum defended the people who participated in the January 6th insurrection, led by insurrectionist traitors, people who beat up cops, pardoned by the insurrectionist traitor-in-chief, that guy, and claimed that their persecution was unfair. Quote, "It has been said that the most surefire way to create an authoritarian regime is to completely dehumanize a significant portion of the population so that their subsequent enslavement by the state will not face any larger resistance. It was true during slavery, it was true during the Holocaust, and it is true now." Yeah, Those are the kind of people that are in the administration, Mark. Those are the kind of people, well, we know you cheer for that because you don't like brown people either. You've been told to not like brown people, Mark. Did a brown person ever hurt you? Did an immigrant ever affect your community? The answer is no, Mark. You're a Christian nationalist, Mark. You want everybody to look pale in complexion. You don't care about diversity. You don't care about equity. You don't care about inclusion. You want government handouts. You want to sit back in your broken rocking chair and complain about everything else. You want to complain about everything else for your feeble, weak-ass, mediocre life. Mediocre at best life. Meanwhile, people are being harmed and you don't give a shit. Children are losing their access to food and you don't care. People are losing access to health care and you don't care. Because God forbid, if you got health care, that would mean that brown-skinned people would get health care too. Because you're a racist bigot, Mark. F1 in the chat. Sorry, Jess. My bad. Anyway, probably a good spot to end. Tomorrow, we will be interviewing Dr. Will Boyd. Dr. Boyd is running for the governor's office, the state house in Alabama. Looking forward to talking to Mark. We tried to put this together last week and we weren't unable to pull off the technical side. Wasn't me. We talked. I'm looking forward to that. So please tune in tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be here. We'll probably either be on our main or on the backup. I'm not sure yet. Whatever my mods tell me to do, I will do because I'm a good boy. Good boy. Thank you everybody for being here today, guys. Who are we going to raid? Let me just check in with the mod team. Let's see. Who is... Everybody wants a piece? Hey now. Yeah, be thankful your name's not Mark. Anybody who's live right now, guys? Yeah, Trump uses his desk to hide his Emma. We're gonna raid Emma. You guys know Emma. Tell her we said hello. Thank you again for being here. Really, really appreciate you all. I love you very much.